This season came out with a crossbow in each hand. Episode 1 fired the first shot. Episode 2 fired the second. Episode 3 reloaded that first crossbow, and this here 4th episode reloads that second. We are set for the season. We have lots set up. Both sides have religious purpose behind them now, or at least claim to. But while the Greens aren't actually sure who their king is or should be, or even which ones are alive, the other side, Rhaenyra's, is arguably in even greater disarray because ruling a kingdom, especially under these conditions, is damnably difficult, and there's a lot of disagreement over decisions, and some of her subordinates aren't exactly being straight with her, and she's not entirely clear on what they're all doing. The most subtle of the episodes so far, I would say, by far, of season 3. Unfortunately, that's often accompanied by lower ratings by the wider audience, even while it is met often with greater acclaim by those who are paying closest attention and by critics. To say it differently, the subtle moments in this episode, and like I said, there's a lot of them, are its strengths. So if you miss those, you're missing the best parts, in my opinion, and of course, your opinion of the episode will suffer accordingly. Things in part or entirely meant to pay off later are all over this episode. There was a substantial amount of character development, especially these newer faces like Ormund and Daeron, the real Daeron. But we also got some Torrhen Manderly and further expansion of some existing characters. A lot of one-liners with considerable weight. The rats may have met their match. And not just one reunion with a pet. There's a lot of animals in this one. And definitely some big surprises. All that and more on this review of episode 4 called Tumbleton on History of Westeros podcast. Hello and welcome, everybody. I'm Aziz. With me, as always, is Sean and Ashea when we're in a TV season. We are here every Monday at 6 Eastern to review the most current episode. We are also here on Fridays at 5 Eastern to preview the next episode. And in those episodes, we talk spoilers and a lot more stuff from the books. In this one, there's just so much to say when we're covering the show. We hardly have time to say much about the books at all, let alone the fact that Sean here is unspoiled on the full story of the Dance of the Dragons, which is a fun thing for us to work around here. If you have questions for us, make sure to hit us up at westroshistory@gmail.com. Tell us what you liked, didn't like, favorite performances, stuff like that. It's often how we like to start as well. Sean, how you feeling? You got your green beverage as usual and your black shirt. Nice way to represent both sides there.
Which you probably chose because we saw the moon door in this episode, and that was, of course, Bronn's, biggest, earliest claim to fame was his fight at the moon door.
Which, by the way, I don't know if you caught it, Sean. They rebuilt that whole set from the original one. Amazing, huh?
Yeah, impressive. They built all of Tumbleton too. It's and if I could make a prediction here again, I don't really know, but I would bet money Tumbleton gets burned. I feel like it's being set up in multiple ways for that or some tragedy to happen there. And the effort they went into building that set, I'm sure part of it was to set up some pyrotechnics and whatnot.
How could a show with dragons and war have a whole city burn? Come on.
Can I interrupt real quick? Can I interrupt and say that in the beginning of that, Sean was muted, but I will say that Sean just remarked on how his bronze shirt was not only for the moon door and the Vale, as I suppose, but because we spoke about Bronn a couple weeks ago, last week or whatever, about him and his competency.
Right on. The perils of live streaming. Occasionally someone's muted that shouldn't be, but hey, we keep on going. Yeah. We have a little bit of a poll here to begin here. Something that maybe some people haven't considered. Sean, maybe you among them. So we'll actually get your take on this at the end, because I don't know if you've thought about this. We'll review the percentages and then discuss it at the end if we have time. It's not an important question, but it is a fun question, which is Daeron's hair dyed red? Yes or no? Because on one hand, there's nothing strange about a red-haired kid coming from a red-haired mom, right? On the other hand, why would they send a decoy with different hair color from their actual person? So that would be weird. So anyway, let's not talk about it now. We'll save it for the end. And you guys weigh in on what you think it is. Jillsville says, the Daeron actor is a sitcom star, son of a Critch. I've seen all 4 seasons. I have never heard of that show, but 4 seasons is substantial. Is that a British show? I guess a lot of these actors are on English TV shows. Probably is. That would also help explain why I haven't seen it or heard of it. The intro crawl had 2 additions that we noticed. Now, the intro crawl this season has been a little tricky, I think.
It's Canadian.
Oh, it's Canadian.
Wow.
Okay. All right, cool. Is he, I guess he's a Canadian actor. Doesn't mean he's a Canadian actor, but anyway, he could be.
That explains why you haven't heard of it.
He is an English actor.
Okay, English actor in a Canadian show. Cool. So O'Shea's going to put this up on screen here from the intro crawl. We don't know who these people are. We are a little confused about some of these intro crawl additions. One of these guys looks like Torrhen Manderly. The one on the right there with the beard and the blue and the hands crossed. We're pretty sure that's the new Master of Coin. But who is this person in white with the dark skin that's kind of whispering in his ear or doing something? And this to the far left, it's like a sun that has an angry face or something's going on over there. So we're pretty confused by this, and there hasn't been any explanation that we've been able to find from production or anything like that. So I don't know. Your guess is as good as ours. If you all have guesses, weigh in, because we're kind of baffled by the stuff on the left. The right could also not be Torrhen Manderly. We might be wrong about that one too, but that one at least fits pretty well.
Yeah, I feel that it's probably the High Septon and definitely Torrhen Manderly, but we are so baffled on the silver-haired, white-haired person with kind of dark shoulders.
Yeah.
Rhaenyra never wears white, and she's already in it, right next to them, because to the right of Torrhen is Mysaria, as you can see. So
all of our other guesses aren't very good. Like Rhaena, who's cut her hair now, and that's not
also
that
doesn't wear a lot of white.
Yeah, it doesn't look that much like her anyway. Yeah, white. No, but who does wear white, right? Like, yeah. So it's confusing. Anyway,
Mysaria, maybe.
But Myzaria's already there, like we said. She's
right.
yeah.
And the white hair doesn't match that either.
Nor does the dark skin. So yeah, it's confusing. It might meant to be symbolic or something else. It might be meant to be an idea rather than a being.
The other thought is what we'll see next week, which is we will almost certainly see, the people around her, because they didn't actually show the other side, the Daemon side of things in this edition of the credits. But I imagine we'll see Alan and Orwyle. It's also possible that the maybe High Septon man is Orwyle or Alan, but I don't exactly think it looks like them. It could be.
So yeah, weigh in the chat with what you think, and maybe we'll come back to this if y'all have some guesses that we hadn't considered, especially if one seems to land. Let's talk about our favorite performances. One last thing though. The rat is torn in two at the end of the intro crawl, which is the rat was introduced as part of the intro crawl last week. This week it's torn in half. So that's notable, I suppose. So yes, now our favorite performances. Last week's results, Rhaenyra 45%, another unsurprising win for Emma Darcy. Corlys 12%, Alicent 11%, so Steve Toussaint barely beat out Olivia Cook there. Daemon 8%, and fake Daeron, his one chance to score, and he did it. 8%, got in there, tied with Daemon. Well played, young man. This week, Sean. Looks like in the notes here, there's a little bit of a surprising choice for you, huh?
Before I get to that, I want to say real quick, I've noticed people calling fake Daeron Pharon. Is real Daeron Rareon?
He's Rareon to go.
Yeah, I want to give it to Matt Smith this week. I feel I was really impressed with the scene. I both the acting and the performance and the moment and everything around the scene with him and his daughter in the cave there. I feel like we go from seeing Daemon in possibly the most, somewhere between successful, confident, triumphant or whatever. He's got his wife on the throne. He's kind of accepted his role of being subservient to her, and in that role, he's ridden out in his dragon. He's conquered the Lannister forces. He's got the money from Lady Jane. Kind of wanted to go back and stick it to her, and I did it all. And suddenly, he's just at a loss. He's desperate, and it's such a shift in his position and his demeanor, and even the sort of acting he had. We haven't really quite seen. It's like the closest maybe it was when he was just completely drunk and hungover and got dragged in front of Viserys when he had taken his niece out and assaulted her and was being confronted. I think also maybe about, he insulted Viserys' dead son, all this stuff. And he's like, oh, he could barely stand or talk. And he's like, oh, but even then it was more, he was incapacitated from alcohol and, scraping to have his brother with a knife to his throat get off him. Here, he's not physically incapacitated. He's emotionally incapacitated. He just doesn't know what to do. And it really came off well. It really made me feel for him. Even as she's kind of calling out his, neglect of her, you see that he does still care. He maybe mostly even cares about Rhaenyra, where he recognizes the conflict this is going to bring. He's thinking forward, which he often doesn't do. And so many things came out here that don't normally, and I think he portrayed it really well.
Right on. Well said. Yeah, I'm glad that he gets noticed for that. I agree with you. That scene was really powerful. Like that one, the first shot Ashea put up there with he's got his sword drawn with Caraxes behind him, but his face tells a much different story. It's like he's ready to fight, but that is not where it ends up. Ashea, what about you?
I'm gonna say a few different people. First of all, Aegon. In general, he did a wide range of emotions. I felt if I could find a scene with him, so it's hard to pull things up when I'm scrolling past it. Whatever, I guess. Can you just talk first and I can get it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. My choice is I really noted Aegon's performance as well, so that's one I wanted to shout out too. But Ormund was my pick, I think. He was a great villain, a great setup, what a manipulative person. There's a number of subtle and straightforward things throughout the episode that show his level of manipulation of this young prince, who seems to have some good ideas, seems to be a kind of a good kid, but is definitely being steered in a very evil direction. And Ormond plays this role really well. We've joked about how he's like Dennis Reynolds from It's Always Sunny. And oh my God, he did so much to increase those rumors. Even his colors are the same as Dennis's vehicle. It's just the tantrum, the manipulation, the grooming, what is that term? Sinister nudity. We looked up this from TV tropes. It's when you stand up and face someone like that. That's a term for it. So he just really, really was great in that role. And also I want to shout out Daeron. I know Ashea has him in the notes too, but he did a great job. And I also put Daemon in there just in case no one else mentioned him. So I'll mention that I had him included just in case, because I also wanted to cite his performance.
Shay, if I can say another thing real quick while you're looking for the right image. I will give a little credit, and I don't know how much I've given credit to. I've kind of ragged on Ulf in the past. The actor, I think, is doing fine. I should be clear. And actor and character, I appreciated this. I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more, but that scene when he goes to Rhaenyra, I appreciated that in that moment that he was all the things that I wanted to be that he hasn't been so far. It took a little bravery to kind of tell her, like, hey, they're protesting you. And he was also tactful when he realized, maybe I didn't say that right. Let me, backpedal and try to make this more like advice. And he was also, the petitions weren't for money to buy all his friends drinks. They were to help his friends out. He was being charitable. He was being brave. He was
I thought you would nitpick that, and I'll have more to say about that when we get into it. Because I had issues with what he asked for, but found it believable. We'll get into that more. I put Ulf on screen first because Aziz did write Ulf as one of his answers, and I want to say he was also named. I can't help but always name him because I like humor. I like comedy, but also he really does crestfallen very well. He really shows having the wind taken out of his sails and a lot of other stuff. So Tom Bennett has really done a lot with the character, I felt.
While we have this one on screen, look all to the far left there. Look at who it is. It's Cheese's dog.
You're muted.
You were muted.
Look at who it is over there on the far left there. It's Cheese's dog. One of a few dogs this episode.
I did not catch that before. See,
right? That's good. Where everybody knows his name. All right, let's move on.
No,
what's
I
that?
haven't actually said.
Oh, you
my
want to talk about
main
your
answer.
Aegon? Of course.
Yeah, my main answer though is Aegon. Specifically, the scene where he finds Sunfyre, which I found just so heartbreaking and moving, and I thought he did a really good job where he's just kind of sobbing against him and clutching at him, and yeah, it was a really heartbreaking scene, and he's not a good guy, but yeah, we all can relate to this emotion, this feeling.
It's easier to relate to him too when he's not harming people with his decisions, right? It's just easier to sympathize with people that are powerless, I think, or low power, even though that may not be how things remain. Yeah, we all have. I totally agree. It's interesting how that works and how we view people differently based on what position and circumstances they're in. Their suffering for their pet is just, yeah, that's universal. Join our Facebook group to weigh in. If you have votes, we have this poll listed. You can do multiple choice and name your favorite performances. Also, I just posted a thread about asking people to show their A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Knight of the Seven Kingdoms tattoos, and some really cool ones have been submitted. I'm very much enjoying that.
We also want to be sure to mention that Hugo Award voting closes August 8th. If you haven't voted yet or want to vote, we are nominated in the Best Related Work category. You can register to vote at lacon.org/register. The $50 World Science Fiction Society membership is enough to vote, but I do hope to see some of you there in person who are already on the West Coast. It's in California this year. And there's also a virtual membership you can get for $85, and then you can attend all the virtual panels and also vote. And as we've said numerous times, the Hugo Voters Packet is just stacked with really great stuff. It's definitely $50 of value there just in books alone. But yeah, I hope to see some of you. That's at the end of August in Anaheim, California. And George R. R. Martin will be there, and we hope to have some nice reports on that front as well for you all.
Right on. We sure would appreciate that, and we would love to call ourselves a Hugo-winning podcast. Jillsville asks, is Rhaena going to go by Nettles later on? Well, I'm leaning yes on that. She looks like what we could have seen. Hey, that looks like Nettles. If we had not been told and we were introduced to what Rhaena looks like this episode, we might have been like, that looks like what Nettles sounds like. But they both have their own separate endings in the book, so without getting too deep into it, because we keep trying to keep Sean unspoiled here, it's hard to say. I think there's a very good chance, though. But yeah, because I think that ending is more part of this part of the story than the book version, which, stretches out a little longer for one of those two characters. So yeah, I'm going to say probably, but definitely not a certainty.
Despite not having read through all this section of the story and, generally being unsullied on the Dance of Dragons, I am still aware of this character Nettles. People would cosplay her at cons and stuff, and I knew Nettles had tamed a wild dragon or whatever. And I was starting to wonder, too, clearly it seems they've merged these characters, just, I don't know, for the sake of efficiency or budget or whether reasons in the storytelling. And it seems right now like she's taking on a new persona, right? Daemon came to see her. They kind of seem to have agreed to, he's going to pretend that she's dead. I killed the person, but she's still there. She still is still there. So she might need to come up with a new name and has already got a new look and so on.
Yeah, changing her name, you're right. That makes a lot of sense. And as part of concealing her identity, a name change is just a natural step, right? So yeah. So you could see why we're leaning that way. Even Sean, who doesn't actually have as much basis for what might be coming. So yeah, that's pretty telling. JM3517 says, can't listen now, but I'll listen in the morning. # Sean Squad. # Sean for life. Right on. That's Sean for life with a Y, of course, because that's how we spell things in this world. I agree. I am also # Sean Squad and # Sean for life. I have known you, 30 years, Sean? Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe,
which means you've known me that long.
Years. Yeah.
Let's go to Tumbleton together, shall we? All three of us. Here's a line from Fire and Blood that says much. Yet the greatest threat to Rhaenyra's reign was not Aemond One-Eye, but his younger brother, Prince Daeron the Daring, and the great Southron army led by Lord Ormond Hightower. Now, taken out of context, that could just be right now, or in general, or given the circumstances in the book. But either way, it's a very telling line. I promise I'm reading the wrong notes here. In the preview and book canon episode on Friday, I'll talk more about how much this fills in the blanks for Ormond. because it's not as clear. Like, you can't know all the inner thoughts of some of these Fire and Blood characters because this is a historian's maester's accounting of things. I don't think Ormond has more than 1 or 2 lines in all in Fire and Blood, which is not that different from a lot of the other characters. There's just not that much dialogue in Fire and Blood, really, period. So, but what I will talk about on Friday, I'll give you a tease, is I believe Ormond was aiming for the throne about as early as this suggests. It's not explicit in the books, but there's a lot of clues to show that. For example, the existence of Aegon and Aemon doesn't deter him in the book either. So, anyway, we first see.
I think he could have been angling long before this. I mean, one of the first lines we got out of him was the patient hunter gets his prey or something like that.
I agree.
He's thinking ahead. Like, he might not have been actively thinking, I'm going to make Daeron king, but he might have recognized that if Aegon becomes king, Daeron will go to court. I'll go with him. Look at all the power Otto had. Alicent became queen. Like, he sees the end. He doesn't need to be king or need Daeron to be king next week. It could be 10 years. He's got a long-term plan. And eventually, Aegon and or Aemon are going to screw something up and get themselves killed in battle or whatever. He's going to be there in position to get power, whether it's through Daeron or whoever, whether it's in 3 years or 30 years. He's got a long-term plan, similar to Otto, in my opinion.
I think he had a long-term plan. You're right. I think this is where, as he said, we have to alter our scheme. And this is when he pivoted to, yes, it's definitely going to be Daeron. I agree with you that I think he always had that in his mind as a possibility. There was a lot to get over, though, to begin with. Like you said, yeah, maybe Aegon would screw up, but Aegon had a son before all this. And maybe now he has another one. We'll see. We'll talk about that later. Aemon was alive and not acting as crazy as he was. So there were a lot of people in front of Daeron before, and that road has cleared up considerably, not to mention Aemon not joining them and all that other stuff that we'll address as well. But you're right, long-term plan, but things are shaping up for him in a way that is almost ideal, despite his tantrum. Anyway, yeah, we first see Tumbleton as this rabbit comes over a small hill. Tumbleton lies at the headwaters of the Great Mander River, which is the longest and broadest river in the Seven Kingdoms. It's the reason the Reach has the level of abundance and fertility it has, in part because the Mander allows for transit of goods up and down. So there's a lot of trade up and down the river. And this is an end point of a lot of these trade routes because of it is at the end of the river, or beginning of the river, really. Rabbits are symbols of a lot of things. I don't know that they had a symbol in mind here. They just wanted to show like this pastoral thing that turns into something very, very different because the town is not in its normal state. But hey, rabbits are symbols of cleverness, which certainly is a thing Ormond is doing, and abundance and fertility. It's a town with a ton of people, and it's a town with a lot of money, and is doing well until these developments.
They're creating a contrast, right?
Yeah.
It was kind of serene, the rabbit just kind of going about its business, cut to logs being pulled in and soldiers, and those guys are probably basically slaves at the moment. Like, just things aren't as they normally are. We start off as they normally are, and we see what it's become now.
Well said. Yeah, that's the cinematic way of introducing it to us, to that concept. I think it was pretty effective. Let's talk about billeting and the appearance of justice. Billeting is putting soldiers in houses. It's another use of logistics to drive the plot, which we like because the logistics matter and they should affect the plot. You got 15,000 soldiers in a place that doesn't have a barracks. It's not a military location, so it doesn't have place for soldiers. Very much like in real life, across all times and all continents, this has been a thing. Again, it's called billeting. In the USA, we have constitutional amendments, right? We have the First Amendment, very famous. The Second Amendment, extremely famous. Fourth Amendment, against unreasonable seizures and searches. Almost all of them are famous. No one ever talks about the Third Amendment, though. Why? Because no one questions it. It's this. It refers to this. It says quite simply, you cannot put soldiers in someone's house without their permission, even in extreme cases like wartime, but there are a few cases where it can be exceeded. So there's no politician in the history of the U.S. has ever been like, we should change that. Maybe a few really early on. But this is the Westeros version of that playing out. It is very realistic and it is very scary because you have these three people just forced into your house. It's not comfortable. It's not good.
that was one of the reasons for us declaring independence, the quartering of troops, and it put in the Constitution. And he said across all times and all until the Constitution. We have not done that in the U.S. The quartering of troops, and I imagine in other countries it pretty much doesn't happen anymore either. But it was a very common thing that armies and soldiers would just, when they were passing by a town, it would literally move in. And the people of America are like, no
more of that.
We'll go to war over this. We're going to put it in our Constitution. No more of that.
Like, the Constitution, for the most part, was at the time like a list of all the worst things monarchies did, and that people saying no more of those. And yeah, that was number 3 on the list. So yeah, you can see how important that was.
Well, but it also is worth saying that I think the Constitution specifies peacetime. So technically, during wartime, it is not constitutionally illegal that we could be asked to quarter soldiers.
But
it just has not happened.
It's supposed to be in extreme cases, in war and extreme cases. Yes. But you're right. It hasn't been challenged much because we haven't really been invaded as a country. Anyway, so there is a lot of historical real world precedent for all this is kind of the point. They're basing it on something that's quite well known as a concept. So yeah, the Westeros version of this is playing out as we see people getting stuck in different homes. We have our somewhat familiar Cat's family to have as our viewpoint for all this. But before that, we have the scene with Lord and Lady Footly complaining to Lord Ormond that he's taken their bedroom, but he needs it, right? He has to have it to get his beauty sleep, to make all these decisions that are so important, right? He has to be well rested, right? Yeah. God, it's crazy. Now look at this bathtub. He's surrounded by messages. So there is a lot of character development here. This isn't just gratuitous, like this guy is a jerk. No, he is actually working it. He's sending messages back and forth. There's a lot happening here. He is making moves.
He's got his incense burner behind him too. See the smoke coming out?
I love that characteristic. A guy who lives at the top of the tallest tower in all of the country. The air would be different up there. So that's a clever sensitivity for him to have. More on that later though, because we're all pretty sure that might be a plot point, but we haven't decided what yet. Anyway, so it's a contrast here. Lady Footly is blunt and Lord Footly is meek. This is absolutely in line with the books. More on that on Friday. He basically says, so you bent the knee out of fear. And she says, we bent the knee because she's the queen. And he gets mad. He does not like that. He makes that face that Ashay has on screen and says, is she now? And he responds with sister nudity, as we introduced at the beginning. Ashay, this is something we just looked up today, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I was like, what is the trope for this? And there isn't one that's as specific as I think they could dial it down to, because there's multiple other scenes throughout film and television of a character, a man, getting out of a bath to intimidate. One came out just a couple years ago. It was the last season of Fargo. John Hamm's character does this exact thing in front of some cops, but he has pierced nipples and it's actually undercuts it in a funny way. But he is specifically showing them his manhood as a way to kind of put them in their place and intimidate them. And that's what he's doing here. She talks about a queen, and that's how he responds, and to show how above them he is, how unintimidated he is, how, shameless he is. It's an interesting character beat, and also completely in line with Dennis Reynolds from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The other TV tropes terms I read that are tangentially related that you might appreciate are defiant strip and full frontal assault. I liked them both.
Assault, yeah. So Lord Footly says his people are traitors. There's no battlements, but we do see in that opening scene a bunch of dudes are hauling lumber in, which is clearly to increase their battlements. But as Bold John Roxton says later, without Aemon, the defenses they are building will not be enough. So that's an important plot point to take note of. One of many important one-liners throughout this episode that do a lot of work. There's a lot of them. Basically, she remains defiant even after his display, even after his sinister nudity. She doesn't break eye contact. He does. He's like, but she does not. She just continues to look at him like, all right, this is how it's going. I'm not afraid of you. So I like that. That was cool. He has her, but he basically says, look, if you don't behave, it won't just be you, it'll be your people. So he threatens beyond her person, which is a way to Which is an effective way to threaten someone who isn't showing concern for themselves. You threaten people who they're protecting. And he moves to that pretty quickly. Now, he asks Daeron to escort them out. And she says, don't touch me. And Daeron recoils, like he's embarrassed. He's a little shy about it, which there's a lot of character work here. I think she knows who he is. He's lived with Ormund his entire life. It's not a secret. Everybody knows that there's a Targaryen princeling living with Lord Ormund, and she probably knows it's that guy, even though that he might have his hair dyed. Now, the audience doesn't know this necessarily until 2 seconds later when bold John Roxon walks in and says, "My prince," and bows to him. That makes it abundantly clear. If there's had been any doubt, that ends it right there. And then it's followed by a teaching moment. The villain teaching his poor squire. You have to be firm but fair. His notions of firm but fair leave much to be desired. But that's the point. This guy is manipulating him and teaching him things as virtues that are not virtues. And it's cool. I'm sure you caught this, Sean, and it's good, really good. I thought that Daeron is. Often he doesn't seem so sure about what he's being taught. He pushes back a little bit, questions a little bit, mildly disobeys, but mostly you can tell that he's being pushed into things, and he ultimately goes along with pretty much all of it.
He has real teary eyes a lot. Like his eyes look like he is, pained and hurting. Do you know what I mean? Like in this shot I have on screen right now.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's worried, I think, and that's something that he's concerned about their military situation. And yeah, I don't think he likes a lot of things he's seeing here. I don't think he likes the treatment of these people, and I don't think he expected it to go this way, because I think he thought Lord Ormond was a different guy because he's been taught in the Light of the Seven. He's been taught all these things about chivalry and honor, and he's not really seeing that play out. And there's a number of examples like that throughout this episode that I think he puts Daeron at he's kind of torn. He's like, this is not what I was taught, yet you're the guy who taught me. So I'm going to obey you because you're my father figure, but he still notices the incongruity, I think.
There is a little bit, it becomes more clear how, I don't know what word to use, evil or whatever Ormond is. At this moment, it's still a little shaky. It's still because he does say, be firm but fair. And that woman just basically committed treason. And he's like, look, you better respect me, get out of here. He could have chopped her head off, right? And I think he wants to and might end up doing it. But at the moment, his mission, it seems, is to subvert Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra is trying to be the queen of the people. So if he goes into the town and chops off the heads of the lords, well, how is he going to make her look bad? You know what I mean? So he's kind of has to, at least on the surface, in action, play nice. You know what I mean? But I think it's just a matter of time before that woman gets her head chopped off. Maybe, once he takes the throne, he's like, all right, now, so-and-so, you take Tumbleton, go chop that woman's head off.
Yeah, I agree. He doesn't really care about her. You're totally right. And my next points in the notes here relate directly to that. He is doing a lot of this for show. Let's talk about the example of justice, the so-called justice, the show of justice that was done here. Now, I got the distinct impression that the attempted rapist soldier had done this before and gotten away with it. But Lord Ormond is being stricter than usual. And the clues for this are as follows. The same soldier, first of all, was seen leering at another woman in the lead up to the billeting with Kat and her brother and family. You see him kind of turn back and look at another woman. So it's already set up that this guy it's already on his mind. He's also heard to say, while they're in their home, we're going to have a good time like we did at Honeyholt. The implication that he did this already and got away with it. And the other guys are laughing along with him like, yeah, we did, Now, and he flat out tells them, go complain to Lord Ormond and see what it does you. Like as if he's done this before, told the same lies and gotten away with it. This isn't a young soldier. They cast an older actor as this. I mean, not an old guy, but he is not a young man, someone who looks like a veteran. He seemed very surprised at being sentenced as he was. And Honeyholt, there's a good example why we should talk about Honeyholt and why this matters. Okay, so Honeyholt is the seat of House Beesbury, right? And I was like, we just got to talk about the Beesburys in Night of the Seven Kingdoms, thanks to Sir Humphrey. But of course, the reason that Honeyholt was opposed to the Greens, even though they're nearby and in the reach, is because of Kristen Cole killed Lord Lyman Beesbury in season 1, the Master of Coin. So, of course, they're against the Hightower cause in this case. So it also might be why he thought he could get away with stuff, that he got away against an open enemy where these people didn't fight back. Either way, it's ironic that Lord Ormond's like, you violated guest right. He wasn't a guest. That's no guest. That's a forced imposition. They were not invited in. Either way, they're not going to complain that he charged him with that because they wanted justice, and that was a reasonable approximation of it from what they saw, right? They were like, they visibly relaxed when he said, you're going to have your arm broken and be gelded. They were like, oh, okay, well, that's justice. Obviously, as you said, Sean, Ormond had his own real ideology behind all this. The real justice, well, you can't touch a Hightower. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's exactly what you're saying. He has no compunction making up the rules as he goes along. Just this, we got to look like the good guys here, so this is what we're doing. I'm going to treat my men differently than I might have in another situation because it's our advantage at the moment. Not based in ideology. It's based in his goals. And I think that's pretty much what you said about that other scene, and it plays out in this one too. And it seems the same thing happens. This scene is more important in the sense because of how Daeron reacts to it and how Daeron refers to it later. He's like, but that man was defending a woman. Our man, violated these things. But of course, Ormond says, no, these things are more important. So, teachable moment.
Can I say real quick?
You should. Yeah, go for it.
As long as we're on it, that moment when he was like, he's an extension of the Hightowers and therefore you, or I can't quite remember how you worded it, but something to that effect. I hate that because it's offered up as reasoning, but you could tear that reasoning left and down. That man that he had him execute and his wife and her woman, those are also extensions of you, right? They're members of the right? And also, okay, fine, they're extensions of you, but some people are a closer or farther extension of you. And also, being an extension of you means you're maybe responsible for them as much as you are to reward them as punishment. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he offers that up, but it could just be easily torn down with logic. But this little teenage kid isn't given me the opportunity to come back with logic. Does that make sense? Like, it's a way of domineering. It's a way of making himself feel better about it. It's a way of manipulating. It's completely unfair. I'm sure it's part of grooming and bad parenting and all these other things. And it's an example, like you said earlier, it's sort of a nuance. It's something that's easy to just gloss over that line, but it's indicative for him and many people that say things like that of the character flaws behind them. Yes.
And Ormond uses a really interesting mix of affection, like encouragement and recrimination, right? In this scene, he's telling him, hey, we got to do justice. We got to be firm here. We got to keep tensions are high. We got to keep people in control. And he's, it's a teachable moment, right? And Daeron has this moment where he kind of looks back at what he just saw and he's thinking about it like he's taking it all to heart. But once again, he has kind of a uncertain look on his face, like he's not entirely sure what just happened, even though the way it played out looked like justice. I mean, it did look like a relatively good result in terms of after the bad thing has happened, this is fine. Obviously, we know it goes poorly from there. But on the surface, in terms of what the rest of the town is going to hear, it looks like Ormond is doing right by them. Now,
if I could say real quick, there's even another factor that, if not actively, subconsciously, Daeron might be considering. There wasn't really a trial. It's just one person said one thing, one person said another thing, and he levied out a really harsh. Now, we know because we saw it, right? But imagine other soldiers, other witnesses might be like, wow, so if I just accuse a soldier of rape, the soldier gets in trouble and I'm okay. Like, he was, on some level meting out justice, and we saw what happened as an audience, so we kind of know. But there is still problems with how this went. this can't be the way you rule. Does that make sense?
I agree with you in theory, but this is normal. This is normal, like medieval style justice, where they like even the good guys do it this way. It's just the king just has to soul read people and be like, I believe you and I don't believe you, because there is no they don't have modern forensics. Like that's just how it is done. So in that sense, it's normal. I'm not saying it's right, but it is normal. Like everybody's going to look at this like, yeah, the Lord makes the call. It's his choice. Anyway, I would love to contrast this scene with 2 episodes ago when Gawain was complaining about the rapist soldier in Cole's army, and he's a Hightower who grew up alongside Ormond. Gawain probably knows Ormond better than anyone else in the cast in the show at this point, other than maybe Daeron, and Gawain would have a more adult read on the situation. So Gawain's opinion would be a lot cleaner. So Gawain was sincere. We know he was sincere. There's no one else around. There's no one else like judging him. That was from the heart. Ormond, though, as we just said, this is all pragmatic. This is all for show. So I like that contrast that we see the 2 Hightowers here, and we know that one of them is sincere and one of them is definitely not. And we also have Alicent pointing out, we'll get into more detail later, when she mentions Gawain's opinion of Ormond. Amongst her opinions of Ormond, she also says that Gawain thought him cruel. But he thought many people were cruel. So she sort of dialed that back a little bit here, but here we are saying, it looks like Gawain was 100% right. Now, here's something that surprised me. I was a little surprised that scene did not lead to the discovery of who Cat is, right? Like if Lord Ormond had learned that's the wife of the dragon rider Hugh the Hammer, the rider of Vermithor, the very dragon flying over their town, that would be, I wouldn't have been surprised if that had happened. I don't know where that would have gone, but it would have been interesting. But it didn't, so maybe it won't. I don't know. Either way, people are going to wonder what happened to this guy. Leon, that's his name. He was an actor on the show Andor. He's gone now. He just vanished. And we don't know if he was just seized from his house or they took him in the night so no one knew, or if he just vanished. They did it sneakily so people didn't see it. But it's kind of hard to imagine he was taken without being seen, given the fact that this town is massively overcrowded right now. Still, the story of his disappearance will not spread nearly as fast as the public justice given to the soldier who violated guest right and all that. That story is going to spread way faster because way more people saw it, and there's a lot more certainty about what happened there.
It's another example, which we'll probably talk more about, the whole fake Daemon thing, where Ormond isn't quite as worried about what happens in a few days, just what happens right now or in a few hours, right? Like if the reality of what happened here, if this guy's missing and people start to wonder, by then he's probably left Old Town or something, like he's
Tumbleton.
got other thing. Sorry, Tumbleton. Thank you. Sorry. Other things to worry. The people of the town will have other things to worry about. He just needed that moment for that moment. The long-term repercussions of that, which I'm guessing he thought out. He probably thought out what it'll work, the things he can say to brush it aside, the reality of what people will think, or how he can control rumors, or how long they'll even be there. All these things, like it is. I don't think it's a plot hole. Does that make sense? I think he's thought out how to deal with the repercussions of this.
I agree, and it makes sense that he would know these things because he and his family have ruled what, until King's Landing came along, which isn't that long ago, was the biggest city in Westeros for centuries. So they have a lot of collective experience in manipulating / ruling / managing a city, and this is smaller than that.
I would also note that we see when Vermithor flies overhead, we see the wife, Leon's wife, the sister-in-law there, looking around, and so there was some chaos that happened as everyone went to hide from Vermithor. So if she might have realized then, where is my husband?
They might have seized him during that commotion. That's clever. Good catch. Very good catch. Yeah. By the way, so I really thought we may as well talk about Vermithor here. Look at the scene. You can see the wind. This is crazy. The wind beneath Vermithor's wings, to cue the music, is so mighty that it's blowing people off balance in the street, which is... Vermithor is the second largest dragon in Westeros, the largest male dragon. Vhagar's female, but that tells you a lot. And if only he could find a way to make those winds stinky, like if those were dragon poop or dragon farts, then Ormond would just flee south back to whence he came, because clearly some sort of deal about smells is relevant here. We don't know what, but... we'll have to wait and see. One of the many important, not quite one-liner, but a couple of lines was the mention of Lord Boros Baratheon, who that guy hasn't been seen since season 1. Where is he? Right? But he's making excuses. That's why he hasn't joined the war. We're reminded that Aemond is betrothed to one of his daughters, as Ormund says, one of his horse-faced daughters. But anyway, Boros is just making excuses. He's not showing up for the war at all, which is also consistent with the book canon. And Ormund orders another letter sent to him, this time with pictures, which is a nice little deep cut because it has been established that Boros can't read. So Ormund knows this. And of course, Ormund would look down on that big time because what did Alicent say? He despises the ignorant and uncouth. So a lord who can't read, he would very much look down on.
It adds to my call earlier when he said, hey, maybe Ulf can get your castle. Ulf also was shown to not be able to read, right? Like it's
that's a big insult.
Little thematic tie-ins they have there.
Yeah. So let's see. Mick Floyd sends a super chat, says, all hail Lord Rosy Pale Cheeks, he of the full moon. I think the trope is intimidation. We have had a religious zealot who wasn't part of the cloth, just a regular royal? Or have we had a religious zealot who wasn't part of the cloth, just a regular royal? I don't know about that. Obviously, Baelor was a religious zealot. He hasn't existed yet, though, in this timeline. He comes along in another 40 years. But not really. Because the Targaryens rested their power in the dragons. It's after the dragons die out that you see a lot more shifting towards the faith, because that becomes the substitute for their justification to rule, which is how it normally works in the real world. All sorts of monarchies claim divine right to rule. It's like, the gods put me here, so isn't that proof enough that I'm here? And Rhaenyra even refers to that at a different point. We'll talk about that in a minute, because it's the parallel aspect that both of these sides have, is that they are angling that there's a religious truth to their success here. So yeah, I don't know, that it wasn't a big deal there have been a few Targaryen princesses that went into the faith. There was one of the other Rhaenas, not this Rhaena, but an earlier Rhaena, sister of Aerea.
Yeah, there was Majel.
And Majel, that's right. Majel, who died of grayscale because she worked with the ill, including people infected with grayscale. So, yeah. So,
and that would have been in Jaehaerys' and Alysanne's children, to be clear.
Yes.
So a pretty recent generation.
Yeah, not too long ago, 50, 40 years. Like, I can't remember the exact death dates of some of these characters, but Daemon and Rhaenyra would know of them, especially Daemon. He would have known maybe some of them when they were alive. So anyway, yeah, good question. Karina, yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Can I make a comment that was kind of in line with what we're talking about and is a great segue? I might even, if you don't mind, read Karina's super chat here. That Ormond is another thing he's doing in a different ways is manipulating. He appeals to religion, like his armor is adorned with it. He talks about the father being in Daeron. It's another way for him to manipulate things. But also, we see him not doing things that religion would agree with. And Karina asks, hi all, is Ormond truly religious? It seems sacrilegious to imprison a dragon in the sept and commit murder in the sept. And I don't want to say he's not truly religious, but ask yourself, how many people who consider themselves on some level to be true religious are truly religious? Think how many people, like, never mind followers of the church that like will lie or steal or whatever, but the priests who will like abuse young children, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that means they're not truly religious or they're hypocrites, or I don't know quite how to, phrase that. But I think at least on some level, Ormond is. But also think, just like most people, he's a huge hypocrite about it. And he'll use it when it's convenient and disregard it when it's not. He'll manipulate the teachings of the church to support the things that he wants. He'll cherry pick, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I don't think he's a complete fraud. But I do think that he is hypocritical about it. Maybe even on some level has a disorder within himself, torn. Like you maybe even see it with he's generally calm, but suddenly has this tantrum and smashes his sword, and calms himself back down. Like there's probably something inside him, some guilt or whatever that feels like he should be doing X because of his religious upbringing, but wants to do Y because of his ambition, and it tears him. It causes him to lie to himself and other people. We could probably do a whole discussion on the psychology of religion or whatever, but I think it is noteworthy that he's using religion to manipulate, and however quote unquote truly religious he is, he will definitely adjust for the moment.
Yeah, he's just making up angles that don't exist, right? Like he's inventing this sort of combination Hightower Targaryen thing, you know, like it's the gods will it, even though you have tainted blood. Yeah. Anyway, we're actually getting to that right now, so let's keep it going and talk about that, because it's the basically the culmination of this plot line as in terms of this episode is one of the final scenes, and let's talk about that here. But first, Books Immersed says, shout out Ori the Dwarf of Tumbleton from The Hobbit. Is Ori from Tumbleton in The Hobbit? I didn't realize that. That's cool. I'm not surprised that George R. R. Martin borrowed a name from Tolkien, because he's done that a few times, and he loves Tolkien, so that's very fitting, but awesome. Let's discuss what I've called the Blue Queen and the Green King. The Blue Queen being Tessarion, the dragon's nickname, and the Green King, who is dubbed in the final scene by Ormund himself. Now let's back up a little, though. Let's get a little setup for Ormund's entire plot line, just to make sure we're clear on what's going on. Ormund's army's been on the march for some time. They were moving up the Rose Road and the Mander, gradually gaining strength. Certain houses capitulate. Remember, that's part of what we were discussing with the example of justice done. We talked about how they were at House Beesbury. They were at the Honey Holt before. So this is one example of a place they stopped off on the way, forced that house to add their strength to theirs. Wash, rinse, repeat. Heavy on the wash and rinse, because Ormund is that kind of guy. Now, the show version does appear to be handling Tessarion and Daeron's prior role in the campaign a little differently. Maybe not a lot differently. We'll see. More on that on Friday. In any case, the characterization appears to be very similar. Here's the one-liner from the book that tells you the basic idea. Daeron Targaryen, 15, Lord Ormond's squire, that same gentle and soft-spoken lad who had once been milk brother to Prince Jaehaerys. Yeah, so, and that's a change from the book. He doesn't go to Old Town as soon, which is set up for Ormond having his hooks in even deeper than he would have. In this episode, again, we see some of these good-natured aspects of him, meek, gentle, soft-spoken, at odds with what he's being taught. Let's talk about... Yeah, go ahead.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
They were talking about the actor for Glendon Footley is the same actor who played Ori in The Hobbit. There is no Ori in Tumbleton. They mean Glendon Footley, Adam Brown. I just wanted to get that in there.
Gotcha. No wonder I was confused about that.
Yes.
There's not a Tumbleton in Lord of the Rings, then.
No, they're saying, yeah, it's the same actor. Glendon Footley.
There could still be a Tumbleton in Lord of the Rings.
Now that I'm picturing him, I can totally see it. Like, that guy did seem vaguely familiar. Picture him with a much, much bigger beard. All right, so let's back up to understand as well what this plan was. Remember, he says we must alter our scheme in this episode. What was the scheme first? Right? Well, they were marching up the Mander, slowly gathering strength, bringing an army to help the Greens take the capital or reinforce the capital, depending. Obviously, when they left, Rhaenyra was not holding King's Landing. You know, part of the way there, marching up the Mander, Rhaenyra takes King's Landing. So it's, you know, the things changed along the way. The dragon seeds hadn't claimed dragons before they left. A lot of things have changed in the war since they departed Old Town in the first place. So the main thing is that they were expecting to be joined by Vhagar. That, and you can see why that would change everything for them. And Rhaenyra maybe could have figured that part out, but, you know, that's not necessarily a dot she would automatically connect. She might consider it, but it isn't something like he must have been waiting for Vhagar. But that is what they were doing. They were relying on Vhagar to make up for the fact that they have a town that's not defensible. It's close to King's Landing. That's part of their plan. But also, presumably with Aemond on their side, with such a large host, you could only imagine that more people would join them. Because it would show such a great level of strength, and that would cause Rhaenyra even more difficulty. So this is basically the plan. It wasn't some straightforward, we're going to march on the capital and take it, because at the time they departed, they already had the capital. But it was the idea was at first to settle the Reach and then take that strength and lend it to the greater Greens cause. But of course that plan changes. When Kristen Cole and Gwaine arrive at Harrenhal, more on them later. The basic point here, though, is they get news that Harrenhal and King's Landing and Tumbleton have basically switched hands. So King's Landing is now black, Tumbleton is now green, and they send word to Tumbleton that they're going to be wraiths, with fear as their standard. Neither they nor Vhagar is coming, and that's what sends Ormond into his tantrum. It's one of the plot-heaviest tantrums I've ever seen. Daeron sees it coming. He tells the other High Tower male servant to leave, but not the local maids. Then Daeron takes a step back, and then the tantrum begins. It's like he has to have a little bit of ritual, a little setup before he explodes. It has the vibe of something everyone in Ormond's inner circle has seen before. It's like everybody knows their job. He takes his step back, and then when it's over, he does that kind of rich guy deep breath to let everybody else know that dignity has been restored. Move on to the next thing. Bold John rocks
his hair.
Yeah, he fixes his hair. Bold John picks up the chair. Daeron moves back and closer. There's like some straightening up of things. Ormond picks his own scabbard back up, puts the sword away. And then we must alter our scheme. Yeah, then go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, I think that not only did people around seem to recognize what was about to happen, like he didn't tell the maids to leave, but they left. They did just leave. And he told the whether page or whatever to leave. And at first he's like, what? And I wonder if he was maybe newer and hadn't seen this yet. A,
yeah, I bet that's it.
And that's why Daeron had to warn him. And B, if he might have been killed by this tantrum. If he was there in that moment, Ormond might have taken it out on him. That might be at least part of why Daeron's
the other thing here is that when you see Daeron step back, he does more than step back. He is cowering and flinching, which to me points to Ormond has hit him, has beat him before, despite him being a member of the royal blood, which you might think maybe he wouldn't go that far. I think he has to have hit him before.
Even if he hasn't actively, smacked him in the face or something, in a tantrum like this, some debris might have gone flying. Like his sword might just accidentally hit someone nearby. Who knows what other types of tantrums or scenarios might have happened. They could have injured or maybe even killed people around him. There also might be a level of Ormond wanting to keep this tantrum under wraps, and someone that sees it, life might be in danger, or like, hey, that kid that was in here earlier and had a tantrum, send him to the wall now. You know what I mean? You could see other ways that it might play out that would be bad for people to be present for this.
He's got his teary eyes again here too.
Yeah.
This actor just does speak so much with his eyes.
It's the High Towers. They're great with their actors. All these High Towers are great actors, I tell you. Allison, her facial expressions, they're wonderful at this. Leadership, not so good, but but acting, fantastic. Yeah, so I think this actually aligns really well with Fire and Blood, including as far as the timing of Ormond pivoting to making Daeron king, which is never explicit, but it's definitely there, especially later when there's other attempts along the same lines, as readers know. More on that on Friday, like I said. So I think some people were surprised by this, though, but actually it's very much present in Fire and Blood without being explicit. It's also another good example. Another example of a good one-liner was the setup of Bold John Roxton, one line saying, if Vhagar doesn't come, our defenses won't hold. And then a scene later, the letter comes, Vhagar's not coming, tantrum.
So I also was pondering the scheme or the potential scheme or how the scheme might have changed. And I was thinking about the idea that Rhaenyra has King's Landing right now, and she has dragons, but she has virtually no forces. Like, she has maybe 1,000 troops, right? Like the remnants of Corlys's
No. Don't forget about the army that's really close to King's Landing that Orwell said is almost there. So she has that. That's a large Riverlord's army. They're not there, but they're really close, right?
They're close, right? But at this moment, in my mind, if Vhagar showed up, and again, I don't know this, but this is something I just was thinking out in my mind. If he marched his thousands of troops into King's Landing and Vhagar, even if the dragons swoop down and fire to death hundreds, maybe even thousands of soldiers, which might be tricky with Vhagar also flying around.
Might burn the whole city.
The skirmish would start outside the city as the army's approaching and the dragons all launch. all you need is for a few hundred of the high tower forces to get into the city. Now, what does Rhaenyra do? Now she can't take the city back without burning the city. Rhaenyra herself might be in the city and be captured. Like, if you throw enough men at the city, a few get in, even if all the ones outside get killed, and even if the other side still has dragons, you've now lost it unless you burn it down.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I don't think that. I think you might be taking that a little too far because, yes, you have to get inside the city, and so once you get inside the city, you can potentially open all the gates, which is basically what happens in the books in a different circumstance. But the Red Keep is a fortress. It is entirely separate from the city and it's entirely separate defenses. And just taking the city is not nearly the same as taking the seat of power. That is a very separate thing. Also, if he sacrifices that many troops, then he can't hold it from the next thing. The troops can be taken out of the city area by another set of troops without dragons having to... The same way they're planning on taking Ormond's army out of Tumbleton. The same way it's described in this episode. Yeah. They're just going to go house to house, which is not a great idea, as we'll talk about later. But it does not necessitate But the answer is not burn the city or no. That's the part I disagree with. They would have this the very same option that they're trying to use at Tumbleton.
Right. They may have the option of, another embargo, food can't get in or out.
No, I'm talking about doing the same thing that they're going to do at Tumbleton, which is what they've said they're going to do, which is have the army go in it and attack the high towers house to house and just remove them that way.
Right, yeah.
No dragon at all.
Right. If a few hundred soldiers got into King's Landing and Rhaenyra retreats to the Red Keep, and those soldiers aren't enough to get to the Red Keep, but they control the rest of the city, and Ormond has forces around, dragons on both sides are flying around, other armies will show up. Like, it's still a terrible situation for Rhaenyra. Like, maybe Ormond fails at actually seizing or holding King's Landing, but is Rhaenyra really holding King's Landing either? It starts to come down to more about the armies around the rest of the realm.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Rhaenyra doesn't have much of and can't control very well. The high towers could, et cetera, et cetera.
So let's talk about the final scene, because this is really, really big. It's kind of a culmination, you could say. All the years of grooming mixed with some of the unexpected developments in the war are all climaxing here in this moment. Ormond is determined to capitalize, and he seems to have some, ideas, but it's all been set up by the way he's, groomed Daeron all these years. Since he was a baby, basically. Super manipulative. He's gotten Daeron to believe a lot of things that maybe deep down he doesn't hold on to or cling to, but he does see Ormond as his true father. He's definitely been told to reject the teachings and attitudes of his birth father. In the behind the scenes, they talk about how he's very cunning at when to give rewards and when to give punishments, when to smile at him, when to be stern, when to touch his face and call him a good boy like he does, and when to say, that sounds like something your father would say, which is just woo. It's just, I just think it's really well done, and James Norton's portrayal is awesome, and as Ashea and I have pointed out, and you too, Sean, the actor playing Daeron is also just doing a great job with this uncertainty and this kid caught in the storm of ambition that he has no idea really what's going on.
There's another layer here, if I could say. Ormond is in a slightly precarious spot here, because that dragon is looking out for Daeron. You know what I mean? At one point, he reaches to touch him. The dragon kind of gives a little bit of a grumble and a shift. But also, I imagine, I kind of read it here, that the dragon is going to at least partly reflect Daeron's emotions or responses. And Daeron seems to have a certain respect for Ormond. Like, the dragon doesn't just instantly kill Ormond, even though it seems as though he has been a threat a little bit now and many times in the past. But the dragon doesn't just instantly kill him, I think, because he knows Daeron doesn't want him to. But also, he doesn't let Ormond slap him in the face either. Anyway, it's really a three-way interaction that's going on here. And I've even thought about, kind of, again, a common theme we keep seeing here is Ormond seems to have this disdain for the dragon, but also can't wait for that dragon to burn up some blacks, right? Like, he's like, doesn't like the Targaryens, but he's going to use the Targaryen tool. And he needs to control Daeron because he needs to control the dragon. And it makes me wonder if not for the dragon, how much more unleashed he might be on Daeron. but also how much more weakened his ambition might be. I don't know. I thought this scene was so interesting on many levels, and I'm going to jump forward a little bit here because it also ties into something we are talking about a minute ago. I thought it was very symbolic that table of candles, if you will, this seems to be like a sort of a symbol of sorts of the seven of the faith. And the dragon just walks over it, just steps over it, crushes the table and the candles to burn this guy alive. I think it was
brilliant.
Symbolic.
Yeah, it was half the dragon and the high tower, the dragon and the faith combined. That's what Daeron is, and it's wrestling within him. Yeah, that was brilliant symbolism, I thought. I'm glad you caught that because so did I, and I wanted to make sure we talked about it. I like your take on it there. Perhaps sorry, go ahead, Shay.
Oh, I just wanted to say we got a nice parallel between Daeron and Aegon in this episode because we start with Daeron pressing his face against his dragon Tessarion, exactly like Aegon did. And anyway, so I think that was a nice counterpoint.
Yeah, you're right. Now, there's a couple more nuanced moments during this scene, things that are said back and forth. When Daeron argues he attacked a woman, is not mercy a kingly virtue? That's the one that has Ormund responding with, that sounds like your father. And Daeron is very cowed. He apologizes. And then he says, you're a good boy. You say your prayers. You do this, you're that. But you have tainted blood. It's a way of basically saying you'll never be better. I'll always be more superior to you. There's nothing you can do to change that because it's in your blood. But as long as I'm around, you're going to be okay because I'm guiding you properly. It's his ultimate, of all the many levers he's installed in Daeron to use him, this is perhaps the most powerful, the one that is the most deep-seated, that you are intrinsically inferior. Yet, like you said, Sean, there's these just contradictions. He's also says, the gods have sent you, and the gods sent you to Old Town. The gods have put you to a divine purpose, He says, it's a desecration to raise a woman to the Iron Throne. Where is reason? Where is propriety? You will be king. But Daeron says, you wouldn't have me betray my brother. And Ormund has both his hands on Daeron when he says, you will be king. And you're right, Sean, the dragon reacted. The first time Ormund went to put his hand on him, he kind of and he pulled his hand back. But the second time the dragon was calmer. He put both hands on his face and was like speaking to him like father to son, which, by the way, he calls him sire, which you don't do to someone who isn't your father. So it's really creepy. That's another example. He's like, you will call me sire. It's like, you will not call your father. You won't act like your father or call him that, but you will call me that. You will restore our ancient order. It's the will of the gods. That's how he gets around Daeron's complaints. He's like, I can't go against my brothers. I can't go against honor. He's like, the gods said so. Sorry, man. It's not my call. It's the gods. Like that. Yeah. Nothing's over that.
Your brothers are full Targaryen. Although, wait, his brothers aren't even full Targaryen.
They're all the same. No? They're all at the same. They're Alice and Viserys.
Have the same tainted blood.
Yeah. Well, that's, by the way.
They failed. They didn't have the right upbringing. They had the wrong father.
Yeah.
You're the one.
By the way, that was a small clue. I want to hear your take on this as well, Sean, real quick. One more point, though. He says brothers. He doesn't say brother. Brothers. So that's kind of a hint that they don't necessarily believe Aegon is dead either. That this story about Aegon being dead they're not buying it either, which it's not true. We know it's not true. So Rhaenyra's whole scheme to claim him dead, it's looking like that could go very poorly. But how? Well, we'll see.
You see I'll say the common folk, that Larys and Aegon were interacting with, they seem to believe it. It seems to be a spreading rumor. And it's more likely they would. Like, that would be exciting gossip to spread. And they might not think or care about the ulterior motives of why someone would tell that lie. They're not considering the politics. But Ormund is. Ormund does see the coincidence in Aegon's at the capital. Aegon was in a battle. Rhaenyra got there and now Aegon's dead. But he didn't get his head cut off. There was no ceremony. Like, has anyone seen him? Like, Ormund is certainly suspicious. And other nobles probably will be too.
So go ahead.
Real quick, one other thing I want to point out, especially because you started off talking about how it's easy to miss nuance. I did not get until the second viewing that Ormond was basically announcing Daeron as king here. I didn't quite pick up on that. But the second time I noticed when Daeron gave that nod to him after that moment, that in the background, John Roxby, is that his name?
Roxton.
Roxton gave a little bit more of a bow. I didn't even see it the first time around, but
they bowed, after the
and
kill,
I realized it was a little bit more of a bow, and I realized that Ormond's sort of nod forward was a bow to the new king. And I was like, oh my God.
Right, exactly.
In that moment, he became king. Just like when Rhaenyra killed Otto, she became queen. This is a parallel to that.
Yes, with the false justice and everything. And it's really, you're, like you said, the dragon and altar of the seven symbolism is pretty big, but so is this. It's very much not what the seven would do, like what we had comments about earlier. This is nothing like a Faith of the Seven anointing of a king by killing a dude who stood up for violence against an innocent woman, like defending his own wife. That's a virtue that they're supposed to uphold. And Daeron is saying that very thing. He's so confused by this. But oh my gosh, Ormond delivers the coup de grace that any young person that wants to please their overbearing adult father figure says, I have risked much and more to raise you up. Surely you do not wish to disappoint me. Nailed him. Just Daeron then stabs the guy, and then he looks like this. Look at this face, this poor kid. He's like, what have I done? He can't believe what he's done. I can't. There's some Tywin in that manipulation. But Ormond and Boljon bow, like you said. As soon as they do that, they validate what he's done. They're like, nope, you did the right thing. This just made you king. Ormond takes the sword back, wipes the blood off on the dead body as if to say, this is just a rag now. This body, this is not a person, because Daeron doesn't see it that way. Daeron is looking at that person on the ground like, I just killed a person, but Ormond is trying to take the humanity away from that person. He's just like, no, this is a nothing. This is nobody.
And the dragon helps. It becomes a meal, right?
Yeah.
And there's also, I'm several times it's been brought to my mind, but I wish I had brought it up in the past, but in this moment, I think of when Alicent, I think she was talking to Otto, and she said, reluctance to murder is not weakness. That's basically, what's happening here. He's like, you need to kill this guy. He's like, what? Kill this guy? He didn't even do anything wrong. Like, don't disappoint me. Don't be weak. And Alicent was savvy enough, bold enough, whatever, experienced enough, or whatever it is, to stand up to her father in that moment. But he, I don't think was, I don't know, might be debatable, but as abusive to Alicent as Ormond seems to be to Daeron. Alicent was older, had lived more life, had more experience, had seen more, had more agency, on and on and on. I don't want to totally excuse Daeron here, but he's in a tough spot. You know what I mean? I wonder if he had just refused in this moment, how it would have gone down.
Yeah.
Probably to start with, Ormond just kills the guy anyway, right? That's probably the first thing that happens. And then Daeron probably gets abused in some way additionally, physically or otherwise.
I think he would have made him kill him. I don't think he would have killed him for him. I think he would have made him do it until he did it. I think he would have for it because it's so important to get him to do that. It was like his anointing.
Well, I think the thing Sean's saying as well is like if he stands up to him, he has more power than Daeron realizes because he's been so abused and cowed into it that he does have the power here. He has a dragon in the room with him. If he actually wanted to stand up to Ormond and stop him,
I agree.
He could have. Ormond knows that he has such a tight hold on him that it wasn't even a question to him.
It's been 15 years of this or 12 years of this.
Even aside from the dragon, if Daeron had thrown the sword down and left the room, how does Ormond force him to do it? He can only really do it psychologically, and he did,
Yeah.
And I'm understanding that Daeron went along with it, partly because it's hard for Daeron to envision throwing the sword down and leaving the room. He just can't imagine behaving in that way in front of this oppressive father figure.
He's also been told it's right. Like he's been told by his father figure, this is right. And everybody around him is agreeing, even though he doesn't feel it. So, Can
I say two things here?
Yeah.
One, this shot we have where all of the shots of Ormond putting his hands on Daeron's face are extreme parallels to the way Otto would always do that to Alicent, that exact pose. In fact, it's the patented Hightower face squeeze.
And they are about the same age, Alicent and Daeron, roughly, that they were.
But that they were back then. Yeah, I've seen photos comparing it. So one, that, and two, it's just this scene really made it so painful, the idea that Alicent hasn't been around Daeron and gotten to know him, because you just know that they would have gotten along, that he would have admired her and all of these things. It makes you really yearn for them to be reunited. Both Alicent's scene and Daeron's scene both make you like, man, I wish these two could just be together.
Yeah. She's sad, because that's when Alicent told Rhaenyra she wanted her fourth child to be raised like a Hightower. She wouldn't have done it if she knew this was going to be the result, I don't think.
Yes, I want him to be raised like a Hightower with deep generational trauma pushed onto you by the male figure.
I like the comparison to Otto, too, because, yes, he was very manipulative. But he was more straightforward about things. He didn't straight up say, women can't rule. He said the realm won't accept a woman, which that's sort of true. A lot of dudes really won't accept a queen. We've seen that. It's not fair, but it's not inaccurate. Ormund actually seems to think that women are unfit to rule, and he's definitely trying to impart that to Daeron. So
even if somehow he didn't think that, he wants to make sure Daeron thinks that.
Yes.
But probably he thinks that, right?
Yeah, I think he thinks that. Because, of all the religious stuff, he maybe or maybe doesn't believe some of that. I think he definitely thinks of himself sincerely as superior. That's one of the easier things to get over the line here. And to get... But I think that covers it for this side of the Hightower plot. We'll be talking about it from Rhaenyra's angle. Let's move on to some of the other scenes, starting with the Vale. There's two shortish scenes here that lead into what happens in King's Landing. So these are set up for the rest of the episode. The first is full of veiled insults and subtleties. The second is dragons and emotional outpouring.
Veiled insults?
Veil, that's right. You got it. Yeah, gotcha. Lady Jane says her bannermen have been informing her of Daemon's progress. That is an easy detail to miss, that he didn't just fly straight there. He has flown to a number of different spots in the Vale and asked them, presumably, for money as well. It's unclear what the result was of these asking other seats for stuff. Because when he goes back to King's Landing, it's one of the many things that's thrown out all at once. When Rhaenyra says, clear the room, there's several things that are shouted out all at once. One of them is, what did Daemon get from the other lords? And so there's never an answer to that, but it is both posed here and there. So it is an interesting open question that we'll see. It might just be nothing. So now the North remembers, but clearly so does the Vale. And of course they should. It's been 15 years, but we don't put expiration dates on murder. Daemon isn't the same man he was back then. He's less self-centered, not self-centered, nowhere near that. But what we see later is most human beings are still disposable to him. He can't seem to go to the Vale without committing murder. It's a very mafia-like scene. She kind of insults him. She's like, Prince Daemon, a beggar with a tin cup. And he's like, generous gift of gold would ensure my speedy departure. And she's like, now that's a price I can agree to. And get you the hell out of here. Is this for some money? Yeah, I'll do that. It's also just a one-liner that Joffrey's not there anymore. Joffrey was installed there with Taraxes, but he's already gone back to the Vale for King's Landing. So he's already departed before Daemon even gets there.
From the Vale. From
the Vale to King's Landing. Yeah, got it backwards. Shea noted something cool here. There's these dogs.
Yeah, she's got her Afghan. That's what the kind of dogs she has, are Afghan hounds. But before I talk about them, because I don't have the picture of them actually up close, I wanted to talk about, yes, they rebuilt the entire Vale set, which is quite an endeavor to be accurate to Game of Thrones. But what they did was they made it for a different era. So there's this beautiful mural back here that they did that's about like the history of the Vale. And you can see it's really nice details. You can see that in the house the dragons built, which makes me think, are we going to see more of the Vale? Because it seems like such a big build for such a ultimately minor scene. It seems like, why would you not build it and then have Rhaenyra have gone there before? It was unusual to me. So it has me thinking about it. But additionally, I think it's such an interesting character beat that they gave Jane these like long-haired fancy dogs. There they are. She has a pair of them, they're called Afghan hounds. So this is my question for y'all. They're probably certainly not called Afghan hounds in world. What kind of hounds are these? Are they like Norvashi hounds, Pentashi hounds? You know what I mean? There she is. Oh, this is the other cute moment. One of the dog gives her a boop on the nose right here. You can see their noses touch. And then Jane has a little bit of a smile and she softens at that. Like it puts her in a slightly better mood being with her dogs.
They're bird dogs because she is an actual human falcon. So
yeah.
Yeah, she really does look like a falcon with a human head with that outfit. This is a stunning scene. Yeah, it's a good scene too. The dialogue is efficient and like you said, it's wild to think about how amazing this set is and how little it got used. It makes me just the more adaptations we watch, the older I get, the more I see behind the scenes stuff. I'm like, how does anyone ever adapt something from a book? Like, like it's that, like this, the amount of work that goes into just this room. Like, comparing that to like ink on a page, like I don't know how we ever make that comparison, you know?
I have similar thoughts. I'm like, how did they convince HBO to spend so much money? Like, how much money can this episode make? You know what I mean? Like they had to spend between Tumbleton and a Vale here. I can't even guess, but
well, Tumbleton is a long-term set, right, Sean? Tumbleton is a longer-term set. So that at least makes more sense why they would invest all of that. This is presumably not that featured of a set.
Maybe Duncan Egg are going to the Vale.
Hey, smart. So as he's getting ready,
maybe Aegon's conquest.
Oh, that's a good call. For the movie,
that idea.
That's
that
a very good idea.
Been efficient with it. That's a good angle, Sean.
That's a very good angle.
Very good angle, actually.
So when he's getting ready to leave, of course, Caraxes smells sheep stealer. Clearly isn't far away, and it doesn't seem like that was a very long flight. You know, I'm a little torn here. I like this overall. I would have maybe preferred that he just catch sight of sheep stealer. This whole dragon kind of just like it senses him is a little weird to me. But I really, really like there's some consistency here. Caraxes has done this before. For example, Caraxes sensed Syrax and Sea Smoke. He was asleep and his head just popped up when they were flying nearby and like, there was no sound. He just kind of looked up at them and started making noises. So this is at least consistent with that. Also, it's another example, one we hadn't seen with Caraxes yet, so it's important to see it for a variety of dragons. This dragon's been with Daemon for a long time, but when the dragon wants to do something, the rider cannot control it. What Viserys has been said in the very first episode, control over dragons is an illusion. So that very much like. So.
Can I say?
Yeah, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I love everything you just said, but I've had the thought, and I feel like we probably speculated on the idea that there might be some sort of, for lack of a better word, psychic connection or whatever between its dragon and its rider. But here's another angle too. The nasal passage of Caraxes is bigger than Daemon's entire body. Their sense of smell
That's a good point.
Should be heightened, right? They can take in a lot more air and would have a lot more sensory in their nasal passage to smell things. And we do know that dragons have an odor. Remember, Viserys could smell that Rhaenyra had gone riding on a dragon. So he might literally smell sheep stealer in the air.
I had another question, which is, we don't know when sheep stealer relocated to the Vale. My question is if Caraxes knew that smell, if had met sheep stealer before,
they might have known each
and
other.
that had been kind of how sheep stealer was driven away, was conflict. There's a part of me that thinks I kind of think sheep stealer has a longer neck than some of the other dragons, but I don't know if that's just in my head. That makes me wonder too if they're related more closely. Related more closely than some of the other dragons, maybe, but I don't know. I think
Caraxes might have
knew
even
each other.
Yeah, had some inkling that sheep stealer was in this area from, its past or their past. Might have smelled it as they were approaching, not just suddenly when they were leaving. And Caraxes, one or the other, might have been like, hey, Daemon, my boy, before we leave, check this out. I got to show you something real quick.
I love how Daemon just gets kind of annoyed at the end. After Rhaenyra flies off at the end of their encounter, he just Caraxes makes another one of those whistling trill sounds, which is pretty cool. I like that unique sound he makes, and he just he points, is like, shush. Does it exactly like that. It's with this pinky out. You know who does that is Polly Walnuts from The Sopranos. It's a very intimidating mafia guy point, which this is very fitting because Daemon was just acting like a mafia guy doing collections from the Vale.
He's just saying, rock on.
He's rock on. Yeah. Dragon Riders forever. That's my daughter. Yeah. So let's move on to the actual scene with Daemon and Rhaenyra. Like you said, Sean, at the beginning when you cited his acting, it's a Oh, what?
Can I just say there's actually a really nice take here from Books Immersed?
Yeah.
That maybe that's why Sheep Stealer reacted to the song Daemon sang, knows it and hates it. Associated it with...
That's why he flew off. He
Yeah.
was sick of all the singing. He's like, I'm tired of these terrible singers.
I like that take.
Yeah. So, okay, the actual Rhaena and Daemon's scene together were pretty solid. You know, there was, as we said earlier, she looks kind of like what we would have envisioned Nettles to look like. The short hair bit, the I fed him sheep line, which we haven't actually seen that, but it tracks, you know.
Sheep Stealer fed her sheep.
Yeah, that's what we did see.
She just did some spin on it to sound better.
Yeah, just like Daemon doesn't want to find out that the dragon's been feeding the daughter. But, so Sean, what chance is this actually over that, you know, he's going to get away with this story, that Rhaena will just hide the whole time? She's done, right? We'll never see her again, right?
He might get away if Rhaena becomes Nettles. He might get it, like, if the idea is if she died at seed, tell everyone, mourn me. I'm going to change my appearance. I'm not Rhaena anymore. I've changed. I can't go back to that life in that world. You won't have to deal with Rhaenyra being mad at me or having to hunt me down or whatever if I'm just not her anymore. I'm Nettles now.
Well,
That only
okay.
lands until Rhaenyra or a person that has seen Rhaena has eyes on her, because she's certainly still recognizable. They
The
know
other
what she
thing
looks
is-
like.
But you got to get kind of close to recognize her. If her hair is totally different. Also, she is going to grow a little bit. And at this age, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it does seem like a conflict to come that could be interesting. But
apart from what this scene says, Sean, there's the other big part, which is that Mysaria calls him out, says, whose head is that? She knows it's not that. She knows it's not the rider of Sheep Stealer. So we already have a very straightforward way this could come out. Also, where is Rhaena then? If Rhaena is now Nettles, then where's Rhaena?
Well,
so
Sean
that still
said
has to be
that-
explained too.
Sean said that they would say she was lost at sea, killed at sea.
She said that.
Yeah, that's what she
said,
suggested.
Mourn my loss at sea. Yeah.
Yeah. It's still
That
you
will
have
have
to say it.
which hasn't come up yet, right? Like that lie has yet to pass the muster. It may not work, but and we may not even get to that point because of Myzaria's questioning, and we'll see.
Well, it would be weird for Daemon to come back and be like, "Here's this head." Also, by the way, Rhaena was lost at sea. Like he has to
Yeah, you
say
can't just
those
do both
at
at the
different
same time.
times.
Yeah, you're right. That would be really dumb. So I like what she says. She's like a dragon is part of me. I'm nothing without a dragon. You know, like I'm a Targaryen without a dragon. This thing, which is a really interesting comparison to some of the other aspects of this, like the idea of Daeron. You know, what is he without his dragon, and things like that. He can't really argue with her. Like, she makes good points. He's like, you always kind of pitied me, you know, you kind of forgot me, didn't you? And he's like, he didn't really say no, because she's kind of got a point there.
Well, my thought is that he ignored Baela almost as much, except for that one scene we saw where Lena brings up that he was, favoring Baela slightly more. It hasn't, like, he has not been a good dad to Baela either. And
Yeah,
two,
fair.
I don't think Rhaena is really all that behind the curve. Like, we heard what Lena tamed Vhagar as a teen, as a young girl, Daemon, same, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, there's not that many examples truly of her being unusual. Like, I think, but I don't think it's a bad writing beat. I think it's a very real thing for a teen girl to feel like her troubles are wholly unique to herself. And
yes.
she's so woe is me about it all.
Those problems may not really exist, but it's realistic for her to feel that way.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
It might be exacerbated when she's the only one. When we're at this moment, all the other Targaryens, my sister, my mom, my dad, they've all got dragons and not me. Even though the idea of getting one at her age is, maybe optimistic or unusual even. But that's not what it seems like to her. You know what I mean? She feels like I'm the only one and I don't get respect. And those 2 points are correct. So...
My friends, we would love to have your support as a member. Joining us on Patreon is a great way to keep the History of Westeros train rolling, to show your support, to get involved in some stuff that we only share with our fellow patrons. Bonus episodes included, certain votes, fun stuff like that. Maybe behind the scenes stuff, occasional information we find out from behind the scenes from George's people, stuff like that. There's a lot of reasons to join, but overall, the best way to support the show is just to go to our website, almost anything you do there on our website supports us in one way or the other, whether it's just getting website traffic, whether it's using our links and shopping through those things and getting us a little cut of whatever profits those companies make, or if it's just a way to find links to things. Not everything there is, not nearly everything on our site is a money-making thing. It's a lot of just cool content. We have an episode searcher. We have our patron names. Lots of cool stuff is there. And of course, you can also keep up with news and events as well. That's historyofwesteros.com. Let's talk about the favorite scene that we had. Possibly the widest variety of animals in this episode. Dragons, horses, sheep, rabbits. We even had a butterfly / caterpillar, rats, of course, dogs, actual human falcon, cats seen but not mentioned. So that's a segue to favorite scenes, because one of these is my favorite. Sean, what about you? What is your favorite scene?
Wait, did you say cats seen but not mentioned?
I said that backwards, because they were mentioned but not seen. Yeah.
Well, we saw a cat. Hugh's wife.
We did see a cat.
We saw a cat.
Yeah. A cat with a K.
Yeah, that's right.
She got me with that one. I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. We did see. I was like, when did we see a cat? And I'm like, oh, cat with a K. Hugh's wife. Got me. Nice. Yes. The best. She's technically correct. The best kind of correct. Yeah, so what was your favorite scene, Sean?
I think I've already mentioned both of my candidates for favorite scene. This one here with Rhaenyra and Daemon making me pick him for my favorite performance. And the one with Ulf and Rhaenyra when he's, petitioning her and gets shut down. Not just shut down, he basically got imprisoned in that scene. I imagine we'll talk about it more in a minute, but I did like that scene. Even if I was very disappointed with Rhaenyra and how it went.
What about you, Shay? What was your favorite scene?
I'm also going to mention Ulf and Rhaenyra, but also the tavern scene before that. The whole Ulf sequence, because the range that Ulf showed, but also even in the tavern scene, he showed a range because he's so excited to see all his friends, but then they're like, drinks for everyone, and you see him everyone. He's still he's like, oh man, that's my whole paycheck. It's the whole bag he's got, and he doesn't really want it to be everyone. He's not so generous and free-handed. He kind of has to do it because they've said it, and he sticks with it, but you can tell he's resentful of that. But yeah, just the range of faces that Ulf has during this scene with Rhaenyra, how crestfallen he looks and shocked, and how he's just like, oh, it's my belly, it's my stomach, and he doesn't see the issue. All of that was gold, I felt, and we'll talk about it more. And as I said before, I chose it as my favorite performance for a reason. I've got to say Aegon and Larys, the sequences with them, with Sunfyre, with them at Rook's Rest, but especially with Sunfyre, and also the detail that Aegon has grabbed one of Sunfyre's scales to bring it as comfort. It did make me wonder, it did make me wonder whether he pried it off somehow, or it was just loose on the ground right there. It's hit me hard in a morbid way, because it is the one memento he has of a dead loved one, but I'd also say he doesn't think Sunfyre is dead, so I wonder about that more.
Yeah, we'll talk about that part when we get to the section on this, which I believe is our final section, so you want to stay tuned for that. My favorite was the Alan's mention of cats, because it did so much. Not only is it satisfying as a cat owner and something we've been wanting for a while, because yeah, that solution has been just sitting right there. But the whole point of that scene was set up very well. The point of it was a connection between Rhaenyra and Alan. It was framed really nicely. I didn't see it coming that Alan and Rhaenyra would bond a bit over their fathers, which I thought was a really clever piece of writing. And Alan is just trying to do his best. It's funny too, because the way it's phrased when he says to his father, I'm no creature of the court. Like creature of the court, like a rat or a cat or a lion or a dragon or falcon, actual human falcon. Yeah, so I thought that was clever because, yeah, he's not a creature of the court. He's not a creature. But it's great because what Rhaenyra needs is solutions. And in this moment, they're bonding, they're over this thing, and he does a great job of the diplomacy, bridging the gap between this problem between Corlys and Rhaenyra. He explains it in a way that both of them seem to at least sort of accept, at least for now. It's a good start, perhaps, on rebuilding that relationship. It looks like Alan's doing a good job. But this simple solution he provides, she looks at him like, like she raises her eyebrows like, wow, that's a really good idea. It's cheap, too. It won't cost a damn thing. And that's exactly what she needs. It's like a click in her mind, like, I need a guy who can provide solutions. Corlys has left me with his son here, and all of a sudden this guy, the first thing he does, after bonding with me over fathers, he suggests a solution that I'm just, hell yeah. So, did a lot of work there. It shows like why she would start trusting this guy, because he just did right by her while also having a bonding moment.
This is one of my favorite changes they've made from the book. I just think it makes so much sense that Alan would be the one to suggest cats. And so changing it from Otto.
A sailor, yeah.
Yeah, as a sailor, it just, I can't believe we didn't guess it when we were like, who could suggest it? Of course, a sailor. Corlys or Alan is what we could have guessed. And yeah, it's a great way for him to prove his worth. And yeah, I did really like the scene of them looking at Viserys' hyperfixation while Corlys leaves to deal with his hyperfixation. Is basically like what they threw all of their time into, and Corlys with High Tide and Viserys with his model of Lyria.
Another, along all the same lines, there was a moment when Rhaenyra is kind of putting herself in her father's shoes. She's like, I don't know how we dealt with all this. Corlys also put himself in his father's shoes he needs a fight right now.
Alan did.
Right? Like Alan put himself in his father Corlys' shoes. Sorry if I said that wrong. It's, not just they're bonding over fathers, but they're seeing them in a new light. And he's offering an explanation to Rhaenyra, even if it's not a solution per se. But Rhaenyra's like, she's upset that he just went off to fight. And he's like, well, maybe he kind of needs that. She's like, maybe you're right. That does make sense. Like, last time I asked him for advice at court, he's like, I don't know, I defer to you. He wasn't giving good advice. Like,
that's a good point.
He's a good sailor. He's a good warrior. He's a good navigate, whatever else, but he isn't necessarily a good king, a good hand of the king. Not necessarily bad, but he's not necessarily good. He doesn't have an experience. And Alan's kind of being thrust in the same situation. I was even thinking when Corlys was like, look, I can't give you my name, but I can give the opportunity to improve by putting you in a position where you're likely to fail. Like, that's, I don't know, like, I don't think it is actually, it might turn out that Alan embraces this well. And also, there aren't many other options, but, and he seems to be having a first good couple steps. But I think it was a poor call for Corlys to be like, I'm out of here. You go do it, son. Like, hey, I'm not really ready for this. You'll get there, But we're seeing that Alan is getting there, so I guess that's good.
I don't mind it too much because, yeah, like I do see, like, I don't, obviously it's you don't want to agree with someone being overbearing, overproud or whatever, but I do kind of agree in some level with the whole, struggle till you can swim type angle to things. This is a really good way to become one of Rhaenyra's confidants, which is a really big gift to give his son. He can't use his name to give him his name, not at this point, but he can use his name to give his son all these privileges that nobody else would have. So I think a lot of people would want to be thrown to the wolves like Alan has here, even though Alan's scared of it. Like you said, he partly can give Corlys some credit for judging Alan as capable to doing. He's been his subordinate for a long time. It's not just his son. He's been his officer in his fleet for a long time. It'd be different if he gave it to Adam, who he doesn't know as well personally, or his capabilities.
And Adam, who hasn't necessarily been in a position of leadership, which Alan seems to have been.
He's been
to make Alan to be competent on many levels.
Giving orders, yes, absolutely. So that's a good, yeah. So that's part of how I see this, but I agree with your nuance as well in terms of what we should be considering. All right, yeah, let's focus on King's Landing. As we've gone through half of this episode here, roughly, a lot of it was about Lord Ormund and his setup, but there's now Rhaenyra is trying to figure a lot of this out. She doesn't know much about this guy at all. What we're being introduced to a lot of things about him. She's trying to learn these things, and a lot of these things just aren't available for her to learn because he has kept a lot of himself on the down low through a variety of means. Also, alongside this, we have a lot of the episodes from a lot of the issues from last episode are continuing, but some of them are being solved, or at least solutions are happening. Whether they'll work or not is different. Some of it
addressed at least.
Yeah. It may not work, but they're at least doing something. The small council is the setting for a lot of scenes here. She has a new Kingsguard, Adrian Redfort. Apparently Daemon appointed this guy. I don't know. It doesn't seem like she has the other 6 yet, but it's a start. She calls her council thin. And by the end of the episode, it's not so thin. It starts off with just Mysaria. And then Orwyle's there, but he's not really on the council. And Corlys is left. But by the end, Orwyle's been invited to be a conditionary member, we'll say. And Mysaria is obviously still there. Daemon returns, so he's still kind of there. His presence is there. And Sir Torrhen Manderley's added his master coin, and Alan steps in as hand. So it is much more filled out by the end, although Daemon kind of doesn't like that. More on that later. Mysaria actually suggests something that kind of what Corlys did. Corlys is like, shouldn't you bring your small council over? And she's like, I don't like those guys. I don't trust them. But the point was, you need people to help. It wasn't necessarily those people that mattered. It was just give somebody these jobs. Make somebody master coin. And Mysaria suggests something is more specific and a little more underhanded about it. But it's nuanced. She pauses before saying it. She kind of like looks at Orwyle and is like, you could make a new master coin because people are going to find out we're short, and then you can blame them. And if the unspoken part is if it goes well, then you get credit for it too. Now, this isn't that underhanded. This is, you got to appoint someone. You got to appoint someone to the job, and if they fail at it, then yeah, it is kind of their fault. But it's kind of your fault too for appointing them in the first place. So she frames it as a lot more dirty than it really is. Because the execution of it is whether or not it would be dirty, right? It's like, just, you do need to name or master a coin. That's a fact. So Orwyle as well doesn't give anything away though. When Mysaria kind of looks at him to see how he's going to respond, he just looks at Rhaenyra to see how she's going to respond. So again, just subtle, like good face framing certain faces and seeing what people are talking about and thinking, and there's a lot going on there.
So she says there's no orbs at her small council. And when Orwyle goes to grab it, which obviously we love the orbs, so slightly disappointing in some ways, but also for in Orwyle's case, he must be relieved if you think about it, because he witnessed a man murdered with one of those orbs and probably has some amount of trauma from that experience. And so I'm sure he's like, good riddance.
I'm pretty sure he was the one sitting next to Lyman Beesbury too.
So like just to see someone bludgeoned with one of those and then they're just still sitting on the table. I don't know.
And I thought there was another nice nuance. He doesn't set it back down. He tosses it back in and like, okay, these are worthless now. So he's like immediately adopted Rhaenyra's attitude towards it. She's like relics of a dead regime. He tosses it. It was really good. Just a lot of little tiny things like this in this episode that I really appreciate. What's your take on some of this, Sean? Then we'll move on to Torrhen Manderley.
Yeah, that was one of the main things I wanted to say too, is how he put that back. He wasn't careful or general, put it in a certain spot, he just tossed it and he's like, yeah, screw these orbs. And also I wanted to make a joke, but it's sort of a win-win with the master coin thing. Like if we get a master coin and get our finances in order, well, hey, that's just what we want, what we need to do anyway. But if we get a master coin and still get the finances in order, okay, we have a scapegoat. We can blame this person. And Rhaenyra, however dirty it is or Mysaria intended, Rhaenyra picked the person that she recognized as being, we'll say, clever, right? But also as maybe grating. And so she, if his cleverness pays off, hey, he's a good person. But if he's an enemy after all, well, hey, I want him to be my scapegoat. So yeah, it's overall a good, like as you said, a good sign of one of the most important things they need to do is get a council together. They got it together. It's kind of addressing one of the biggest concerns, or maybe even solving Alan subbing for Corlys might be better because Corlys didn't have much to offer and Alan immediately did. Et cetera, et cetera. So.
Right on. So yeah, he is now Master Coin. We see him in his seat when the council meets again. It's definitely a change from the book in terms of his role, but Torrhen is in Fire and Blood. He does support the Black, so it's not like necessarily a big change. We'll have to see. He says, yes, I'm the new Master Coin. What little there is to be master of. And Daemon just immediately resents this guy. Daemon just doesn't really like the small council. He just thinks that the king should just make decisions. He doesn't really like this whole advisory thing. he always acts out, and he really acts out here. This is one of the most Daemon lines ever. I'm the clever one around here. What? That's the most absurd thing to say. And I love Torrhen's response. Say no more.
Which again does show that he's clever. He's trying to make light of their financial situation, which is, maybe a smart thing to do rather than just be negative and woe is me. But when this other more powerful authoritarian whatever figure says, hey, no jokes, like, all right, no jokes, got it. I'll do what I'm told,
Yeah,
but
you're right. He played it right.
Yeah, it plays it just right where Daemon can't, pick at him for it, but it is a snarky reply. It's like, say no more, you said enough. Any person who would declare themselves the most clever one is not actually all that cunning or clever when it comes to this court intrigue stuff.
Yeah, it's like Joffrey's lesson from Tywin. Any man who must say, I am the king.
Yes, it is that. Any man who must say, I am the clever one is not the cleverest one in the room.
Daemon never says, I'm the badass warrior. He doesn't have to. Everybody already knows that. Right. He doesn't have to point that out because that one actually is true.
But what he's really saying is, I'm in charge here. Don't disrespect me. I'm not your friend. He's saying a lot with that statement, and Manderley gets it and follows suit. He reads the room,
I also love how Manderley, when the head gets slammed down on the table, he just looks slightly annoyed and pulls his wine cup back about 2 inches.
It's a good moment. He's like, flies buzzing around that thing.
Yeah. And Sean, I don't know if you weren't here when we, of course, because you're not on our review episodes on Fridays, but this is actor Dan Fogler, who is one of the very few Americans on the cast, which is, he's a northerner from a city. So, like, a different accent is appropriate to throw in here. So that was a nice little touch, I thought, casting an American.
I think we might have talked about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because he did show. Yeah, I guess he did show up at the feast, so that's when we might have talked about it. Anyway, so this is when the council starts to explode. There's so many things get said at once, and this is where, honestly, if you don't have subtitles on, you probably miss some important lines. This is when a lot of the other important one-liners, things that are worth discussing, think plot lines that should be in line or should be happening that we're curious about, get tossed out. Not necessarily resolved, but get tossed out, so at least we know they're happening, or at least they're in play. The conversation starts with, where is this money going? Mysaria's like, take care of the poor, you'll have bedlam. Daemon says, don't take care of the gold cloaks, bedlam. Which bedlam is worse? Rhaenyra decides that since one of these two, the gold cloaks versus the people, has a figurehead that they will listen to, Daemon himself, that they can be the ones to wait a little longer. It's reasonable enough given the tough spot. Someone's getting stinted, and they do seem awfully loyal to Daemon, so it seems like a reasonable, dangerous, but reasonable choice. Both choices are dangerous. So that's when things go bedlam, because they start arguing. And what you hear is the following lines. Has there been word from the other great houses? What did Daemon get from the other houses of the Vale? The Iron Bank has not responded. That line is thrown out there. Huge one, because I know a bunch of people are wondering, why haven't Rhaenyra contacted the Iron Bank? Well, she has. And then it ends with Manderley saying more distinctly, more clearly, has anyone proposed a tax? Now, who knows what kind of tax he has in mind? Clever tax, maybe something that hits like luxury goods, something that would be palatable to a lot of people, that wouldn't affect the commoners. But we have no idea what it is, because Rhaenyra says clear the room because she wants to talk about the head.
Torrhen's delivery of that is so funny, though. You can see on screen how kind of exuberant he gets. Has anyone proposed a tax? And he puts his quill up in the air and looks kind of frenetic. I don't know. Like, very, very funny beat by him.
To him, it seems like almost an obvious solution. Now, that doesn't mean it is obvious or good. And also a tax, it could be like a temporary tax. And it might only be like a 1% tax just till we get, and the people might accept that better too. Although I guarantee you, if they make a temporary 1% tax, it will become permanent and it will become 2%. But aside from that, another reason that line came through more clearly, if you will, is because he got the camera on him. A lot of those other lines being thrown around, the camera was on Rhaenyra, because what we're seeing here is not just her, in the moment preoccupation with the head, or the idea of her son being killed, or she wanted the revenge. All those are mixed up. But in general, it's still, I'm guessing, can't have been more than a few weeks, maybe even still days, since her son was killed, right? And don't forget, it wasn't long before that before her other son was killed. And it wasn't long before that before her dad died. Like, she is still going through so much grief and trauma. And it's so much to consider how much is being asked of her without the grief and trauma, you right? Even without the debt. Like, if she had taken over and it wasn't chaos and war and all the money's missing and her family members all hadn't died, this still wouldn't be an easy spot. But every possible strain it could be put on a person is being put on a person. And it's coming through. You know what I mean? I think some people watching this might feel like, oh, I can't believe she did that. Like, even her thing with Ulf, like, I'm disappointed. But yeah, man, of course she's not making perfect decisions all the time. She's emotionally distraught. Her time is being stretched. She can't figure out who to trust. There's no money. She can't sleep. Like, what do you possibly want from her, you know?
Yeah, right. Also, from the behind the scenes, a little clarification. They're saying that Ormond's move with false Daeron, the fake Daeron, has unnerved her a bit, because what other sneaky thing is happening around me? Like, it's just unsettling for her to be like, well, who else is... Like, these kind of things could be all around her, basically. And she's just, because she caught this one doesn't mean there aren't several more of these going on. So
yeah, either a trick in front of her face she hasn't caught yet, or a plan that someone else has that hasn't come to fruition yet, or what Ormond's plan is, even like I said, even if it was a time of peace without war, without the money, it would be tricky. But yeah, you're right. I feel like they did say in the behind the scenes something that I don't think I particularly would have picked up on, but something they seem to want to be pushing is that she has a frustration or a paranoia or whatever it is around what Ormond is doing. And also, he's right outside her city with a huge army. You know what I mean?
Not far away.
You know, it's funny because they say it's like she doesn't understand his motivations. And I'm like, it seems pretty obvious, Rhaenyra, that he wants to oust you and put Daeron on the throne. But to me, the deeper thing is that she doesn't know what else he could do to make that happen, but they do explicitly say, like, she doesn't understand what he wants. And I'm like, I feel like she should certainly understand what he wants.
The confusing part is the Daeron, I think, part, because, like, I don't know if she can perceive making him king, because she would have the same confusion Daeron does. I was like, well, what about Aemon, you know? And she knows Aegon's alive, although that doesn't necessarily matter. But still, the Aemon thing is big. But you're right about the army part. Like, there's no question that army is there to overthrow her, you know?
Yeah, you know, I'm like, it seems like, these are your enemies, so and you should fight against them.
So I think her confusion is like, well, how is he going to do this? Like, he seems overmatched. Like, what else does he have planned? Because as things stand right now, he's going to lose badly. So I think that's what she's...
If he tricked me in this one way, could he trick me in another way?
Yes.
Also, there's a wild dragon has been tamed. Like, you see all the different weird things that have happened that are hard for her to process.
Yeah. Let's actually talk about the head, but real quickly before that...
Another thing on the table I want to talk about.
Another thing on the table, yeah.
We have a cameo from a character from A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
That's right. But before that, one last comment about Alan and the whole concept of a creature of the court. He says, I'm no creature of the court. Well, Mysaria, Orwyle, Manderley, they are creatures of the court. Arguably... Rhaenyra needs one person on the council who isn't that. Someone who sees things differently, who isn't as caught up in politics. That's actually valuable. Alan may not realize that level of value. Maybe even she doesn't, but I think we can see it, and we can see how that might play out so that they both realize it pretty quickly. Beyond the cat suggestion, there's probably a lot of other things he can do. Yeah, let's talk about the head.
Let's talk about the egg.
And the egg, yes.
Rhaenyra's got a hard-boiled egg snack ready for her at the table.
Because she needs an egg in these trying times.
Yeah, exactly. I was like taking my screenshots and I'm like, what else is on the table? I'm like, oh, her midday snack.
I do appreciate the detail that she's not pausing for meals, that she's eating on while she's working, because she doesn't have time to stop and just have a meal, you know. And if she's having a meal, it's with allies or other lords that she's having a relevant conversation with.
Protein-filled meal.
Yeah.
Also, you guys assume it's hard-boiled. That might not be cooked.
She's drinking raw
just, like,
eggs
drinking
at her meetings.
They're assuming it's a chicken egg. That might be.
Right, did Frank do that? Right, he gave someone an egg, and as soon as it was hard boiled, and it suddenly
Yes,
it was
yes.
not. Yeah. I'm gonna cook that up
and
for
the
you.
gang tries desperately to win an award. He does that.
That's right.
So here is Daemon desperately trying to pass off ahead as someone else is. He says he brings justice, vengeance, and money. Truly, it was only one out of those three. Rhaenyra is upset because she wanted to look on the face of her son's killer. Will she actually see Rhaena again? Because, well, she's not actually her son's killer, but Rhaena doesn't think she could ever face Rhaenyra again. So it is an open question whether they'll see each other. Now, they're both projecting a little bit. Rhaenyra would not execute Rhaena. If she knew the whole story, especially, even if she didn't, she'd be like, oh, it was Rhaena? Because immediately that would be like, well, then that's not someone just fighting for the Greens. Wait, what's going on here? You know, that would immediately make her start a whole new line of questioning. It's easier to see Rhaenyra forgiving Daemon for this lie than actually forgiving Rhaena, though, because that's why he's making this lie. It's just to protect his own daughter, which, of all the things Daemon's ever lied about, it's, well, this one at least isn't selfish. Of course, it does involve a murder, so that's really bad. But, like, what if Rhaena captures Otto Hightower? Like, what? I mean, obviously he's dead, but what if she had done that? Like, in other words, what I'm saying here is, she thinks she can never face Rhaenyra again, but what if she just does some great deed? You know, like that's the one thing you could do, like make up for it. Is there something that she can do? I'm not saying there is, but, you know, go out and solo Vhagar herself, you know, like I don't think that's going to happen, but.
However upset Rhaenyra is with her now, she would be less so if Rhaena did something more positive for her.
And knew the whole story. Both those things together would do a lot, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, right now too. I mean, that's very common in grief. You look for someone or something to blame, right?
Yeah.
And so that's right now. That's the object of her blame is that sheep stealer and narrator. That's the person that she can blame. Some random archer on some boat that no one knew or saw and probably got burned to death. They can't be blamed. She can't look them in the eye. She can't get revenge. You know. But sheep stealer, that's the one. Get me that person.
Yeah. So let's talk about Mysaria's role here a little bit. They argue about it, and Daemon's mostly able to just shut down her concerns by mostly pretty logical things. He's like, yeah, I mean, my dragon, he basically says, Caraxes killed the rider, is what he's saying. Well, how was I supposed to ask any questions, you know? Which that makes sense. That part of the story is like, yeah, okay, fair point. Like, when were you supposed to ask questions? You know, he says a dragon is an instrument, you know, not the most precise instrument or something like that. I was like, yeah, that's a fair point. So that part of the lie works really well. But the problem is Mysaria First, she says, clear the room. And Mysaria, like, slow walks, like, even me, you know, like, are you sure? Me too. And then she leaves. But she's clearly waiting right at the door, because when the conversation ends, she looks like she's walking off, like she's been walking off, but she's only made it about 3 feet after that whole conversation. And the door was open, so she was listening. Almost certainly she was listening. And Daemon comes out mad because he's mad, because Rhaenyra's mad at him, and because of the Manderly, and he just doesn't like all this business of counting coppers. And she's like, he says to her, you know, when all this you've wrought comes crashing down her head, Rhaenyra's going to come to her senses. And he's like, and she responds, whose head is that?
Yeah.
It's great.
Rhaenyra's got something to come to her senses about you too. Yeah, she is almost by profession a conniver, right? She recognizes that that's a lie that's hard to misprove. She, you know, like it makes sense. If he wanted to give Rhaenyra this satisfaction and himself this moment of triumph, this is a way he could do it. Doesn't mean he didn't. Maybe he did, but it sure is darn convenient, Daemon. Whose head is that?
He didn't give the other relevant details, like where, when, like what happened? Like, be more specific. Okay, your Caraxes killed the rider, but like, where did you find them? Like, what do they look like? You know, like there was some very basic questions didn't happen here, but looks like some comments here Shay has posted. So Viserys ate an egg in season 1, episode 1?
Yeah, they said apparently he was peeling an egg at the council meeting at the beginning of the show.
Those were trying times too.
Yeah. Significantly less trying for Viserys, as we've said before.
I vaguely remember that. I don't remember that it was an egg, but I remember there being this air of Viserys not really caring about the council meeting. He's kind of going through the motions. Like, all right, what else? He's like eating a snack and he's telling a joke about the wrong end or something.
And he wants to talk about the tournament setup. He's excited. Yeah, you're right. He's very lackadaisical about it. But he's like broy. Like they're all with him. They're like, yeah, King, this is good. Yeah, or they're laughing with him.
The idea he's eating a snack in the middle of it kind of adds to that. Whereas Rhaenyra, it's almost out of necessity. She doesn't have time to go eat some feast, right?
She's on the go.
Right.
But Viserys could have done. Yeah, he's just leisurely. You're right. It's a very different context. That's a great point. Great take. Great catch, y'all. Didn't remember those eggs. So Rhaenyra burns the head and grieves over it. This is really symbolic, too, because she's unwittingly grieving over the head of an innocent murdered subject, the very symbol of who she is most trying to promote and protect and center around her own legitimacy. And this is just false justice, false everything. Yeah, so that part of it cuts. And I assume
we see her burn the egg? I mean, burn the head.
I guess she didn't. Maybe that was just the trailers.
I think we're going to see that. It's in the trailer, and it's not in this episode because it's not in my screenshots, and I was very exhaustive in making sure I got every important shot.
I don't remember anything happening with the head other than
I think that's what's going to happen next episode.
Ha! I guess I skipped ahead there.
Yeah, you did.
That's funny because I could have
just based on the trailer.
She just cried over it.
She just cries over it, and we don't see a resolution. She has it
in her soul, in her room, and she's crying over it, but she doesn't burn it yet. Okay,
she doesn't burn
the burning comes later. Man, I just have that in my head. It's been since the first trailer.
Yeah, I know.
Of her, we've been wondering who that head was all along. We did not guess.
Yeah, random shepherd. Viserys or Jace. Oh, it's just a shepherd.
It's somebody that was not on the bingo card at all. But I do think it was pretty powerful given this thing about the people that she's trying to support and the whole lie that she is unaware of and made to grieve over. So we talked about some of the aspects of Ormund and what she's wondering and trying to gather, but she isn't just trying to understand his strategy. That's what we've talked about to start. She also tries to pull some Sun Tzu stuff, which this makes a lot of sense and is something that she's a little more equipped to do. Some of her military understanding is pretty naive. I've said this a few times. She's not getting great advice from that. I can understand why she doesn't appoint Daemon in charge of the strategy for Tumbleton because she doesn't, if you let him do it, then a lot of people are just going to die. She's trying to treat it a little more gently than that for understandable reasons. So that part she's maybe not super prepared to do because she doesn't have the military experience and none of her advisors really are. But know thine enemy, which is the Sun Tzu thing I was referring to, is extremely smart, extremely wise, good thing to do. And, she wants to try to understand it. I love this line she says in terms of why did he choose Tumbleton? He may as well paint a rondel on his chest for all the good it will do. That's like a joke about painting on a shirt or painting on socks. Like it may look like a sock or a shirt, but it won't keep you warm. It won't do the job of those things. And as we also discussed, he's tempting her to destroy her own legitimacy. Rhaenyra spends some time researching him. I like this a lot. She goes around, she asks a lot of different people questions about him, mostly Alicent. She starts there, and that makes sense. And Alicent, let's talk about that. Alicent says he's a scholar, a historian, he composes ballads, collects tapestries. There's that line about Gwaine thinking him cruel, and the bit about odors. So that is all there. That's all pretty straightforward. It doesn't tell us a whole lot, especially not things we haven't already discussed. But then she goes and asks Orwyle about him and is like, I want the letters. I want to see his letters. Smart move. But Orwyle says Otto never received letters in return from him. And she's like, what? Which is kind of like, what? Yeah, that is a strange thing to hear. And his response is, well, he ruled Old Town as a kingdom unto itself. It's something to remember, but it's also something to side-eye. Like, really? Did he really never send letters? Like, did someone take or hide these letters or conceal them? That's possible. It's also, if Orwyle himself did it, it's extremely bold because it's very hard to believe, as we're all struggling to believe this, unless it's true, which then it's a little easier to believe. But who would take them? Like, Orwyle would have control over this thing. Good time to point out, by the way, that Rhaenyra said, you still have control over the Ravens, but Mysaria gets to see it all. You have to pass it all through her from now on. If some funny business happened with these letters, it would have been before that, though, of course. So, interesting. Did your suspicions raised by this as well, Sean?
Yes, this is the thing I've been probably the most stewing over. The what and the what? Like, if there's not something to this, why include this, right? Just from like a storytelling, script writing perspective. Like, I don't think Orwell's like, I don't know. I guess he's just doing his own thing out there. All right, and then we just move on. Like, they wouldn't include all these moments in dialogue if it was that simple. There's got to be something else. And I was wondering if maybe there was some other agent they were working toward. If it's going through the septum, or some other secluded or invisible person. Which it seems weird to introduce a new character for that to be, but who knows? Maybe it was all burned. Maybe Otto got records and burned them, or had someone else burn them. But it seems like Orwell or someone would have had some knowledge of that. What a weird thing. What is going on? Loras is someone who might have access and motivation to hide this information. Maybe just wanted to see it for himself.
I'm skeptical that he has
hiding it from Rhaenyra.
That level of access, though, right? We're going into the Maester's quarters and going through all these records. That's a lot. The logistics of that are a lot. I'm sorry?
If he might not go in there, but he might be able to get someone else to go in. He might know someone who works with the Ravens and say, "Hey, see if you can get me these notes. Put them in the spot in the corner." And all
it's possible.
Come up in the corner. I don't even know if it's likely. It's just my best guess right now is who would have some amount of access and motivation to get this or to hide this. Certainly, I'm not saying this is it. It could be something else. But it's hard for me to think of something else, and I can't believe they put all this in here for no reason.
Yeah.
Whether it's Loras or not, I don't think this is the end of it. I think this has got to lead to something somewhere.
I agree with you, and I think that thinking of Loras first is certainly sensible. If you're thinking of, who is the sneaky? Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's certainly possible. It's logistically, it's an interesting thing to pull off, but certainly not not over the top. Certainly not unbelievable.
Like other potential candidates, Aemond. Cole, Alicent, the Septum, these are all people who I think, there's no way, right, that it's Sir Lucas of the
Luthor
City Watch, right? Luthor,
yeah.
Sorry. I shouldn't say there's no way, but I don't feel like he's really a candidate, right?
Sure.
I don't think Aegon is a candidate here, right?
Right.
He wouldn't know or care or do anything, There's only a few
I don't even think Aemond is, because why? Like, again, what's his, there's no reason. What's the point? Yeah. Like, why? The whole reason, the whole thing here is motive, too. Like, we have a big question of motive, which makes it really hard to pin it on someone. Anyway.
The Master of Whispers...
Well,
have some motive.
No, we don't know that for sure. Again, even if we know that he's we can pin it on him or try to pin it on him because he's the type of person capable of it, but that doesn't give us a motive because we don't know what benefit there is to this. We have no idea how this benefits anyone.
The benefit is that there was incriminating information about Larys in those letters, and so he wiped them all so that they don't know that he's an agent of them.
That is a valid possibility, yes, but you would need to wipe out all the letters for that, though. That doesn't explain. That's still not.
It might be easier to wipe all of them out than to worry that one little mention slipped through in one of the letters. You just take them all.
That's possible.
And it might not even have been as specific a motivation as cover something up for himself or move someone to whatever. It might have just been he wants the knowledge. It's possible if they say, "Give me all the information between the Starks." Oh, there's nothing about the Starks.
That's a good point too.
And everything he could just to have the information. He's the Master of Whispers. He wants to know what's going on around the realm. This is a little thing he was able to do,
Protecting, certain aspects of who Ormund is, maybe. Yeah, there's no indication whatsoever that Larys and Ormund are working together. That's the problem with this. But
no, that's what I'm saying. It might have nothing to do with Ormund per se. He just wants
protecting his own,
protecting or working with Ormund.
Right.
He just wants this information and he just might learn it. This shipment is being moved from here to here and send some agents to go hijack and to get them, he could have a million different motivations or values he gets from this.
There's a lot. There's absolutely a lot of variations that involve them not working together at all. I'm just saying that I'm just clarifying that part of it. There is no indication that they're working together.
Right.
Notice as well how Rhaenyra frames it. This is really important, I think. Orwell suggests using Daemon's river host to attack Tumbleton, which is like, okay, that's a good idea. Yeah, redivert. They're already heading that direction. It's not that much farther. All that makes logistical sense. Have them root the high towers out house by house. That's where the military naivete comes in a little bit. She says, that's a good scheme. It's I think the Kingsguard kind of side-eyes that. It's really kind of a subtle moment. It's not. It's very bad. I don't think Rhaenyra realizes just how bad that would be. How, yes, it is better than burning the whole city to the ground, but like the bar is... There's nothing lower than that.
It's about burning half the city to the ground.
Yeah, it's so bad. It's such a violent thing. Like the history of medieval style warfare in cities and towns is just so bloody and so brutal, and so just gets stuck. Like things don't happen.
Never mind medieval. Modern day is not much better.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Even in the past maybe 20 or so years when you have like guided strike missiles, it's better. But like think how Vietnam went, you know?
Yeah, or Stalingrad, or yeah, you're right. Just so many of these like cities are just terrible. Yeah. So, but I want to change the focus here. Rhaenyra is using a lot of this coded language. She brings up how if she burned Tumbleton, she doesn't say it's wrong. She doesn't say that people would suffer. She says the gods who raised her up would rightly cast her back down. So she's seeing the gods as good, and that their justice will decide this, which is an interesting angle for her to take and see things. Regardless, the conclusion is agreeable. Don't burn Tumbleton. But this is kind of what I was saying about military strategy and stuff like that. Because the plan she's going to take is still going to cause a huge number of people to die, which doesn't necessarily make it what the gods would approve of, given her belief of that, you know.
You could relate this to the moment when she sends the gold cloaks to go take down a graffiti and find who's responsible. She is not thinking about how that's going to play out. She just hasn't thought forward to the reality of how this is going to go.
Yeah, I agree. That part, that's her worst moment this episode. Let's get to that in just a second. So there's some certain things that are kind of testing her patience, and she could see her getting ahead of herself with like making assumptions that are kind of wrong, maybe a little unfair. Like Rhaenyra meets with Hugh, and she's just like, I'll get you your house when I can. You know, he's like, that's not what I'm here to talk about. You know, I want to defend my wife. You know, let me take these turns flying over Tumbleton because I will not tire. And she's like, okay. She relents and says that's a good call. But you can tell even in agreeing, she's a little impatient about it. She's like, okay, yeah, go ahead and do that. Tell Ulf, get out of here. Hugh is satisfied with the compromise. He gets to it. He's like, yeah, that's what I wanted. I got it. And Vermithor really does need a speaker attached to his saddle, you know, blasting Tumbleton with music and maybe stenches too while we're at it, since Ormund wouldn't like that. I also appreciate that Ormund was a little flustered when Vermithor flew by, just like he was slightly less flustered when Tessarion made a little angry sound at him and kind of snapped a little bit. Yeah. Also in that moment, it was neat to hear that the Hightower men were shouting about obey the curfew, you know, get inside, you know, do all that stuff. So they're clearly enforcing these rules to keep order, you know. So Hugh doesn't know what was going on down there. I thought maybe we'd learn more about it, but it's not gonna help the Greens if Hugh finds out that his brother-in-law was murdered and his brother-in-law's wife had her arm broken and his wife was almost semi-assaulted by a soldier. That's not gonna enamor him to the Greens. And Hugh has a temper. Remember, we've only seen it the one time, but he just like lost it during the Red Sowing, and it actually worked out for him. But that was a character moment. We shouldn't forget that Hugh has that in him.
He also, there was a moment when Rhaenyra shipped the goods on little unmanned boats, right? And people were gathering and bringing it in. And he just like tackled someone on the ground and stole their stuff. It's like, where'd you get that food? Give that to me. Like, he definitely is not beyond using violence to get what he wants.
Yeah, and that was when he was trying to save his child, I believe, which is like, kind of like understand it a little bit, but it's still not a great look, you know? It's still like, well, what else is he capable of? Yeah, so it's definitely, these are important things to remember about Hugh, as he's still very much in play, very important character, and there's things to come. A couple more comments from y'all. Aaron, with a whole lot of numbers after his username, says, every time a message was delivered, Otto may have burned them. Yeah, that's possible. It's also, maybe would be a little weird that Otto left his messages and didn't. It's also, I would wonder, if I was Rhaenyra, I might want to look a little deeper and be like, well, do Otto's messages ever say, hey, how come you haven't responded? Because that would say a lot, you know, if it's like there's indication in those letters. Because if that's the case, then some saboteur would want to destroy those too.
and that maybe even isn't a clue for us. You know, we don't exactly know the nuance of the conversation or how much Orwell read through. But if they did say that, it seems like it would have been brought up, and it wasn't brought up. That's a clue that it might not have said that, which means that there should be messages, and somehow they're coming through a different source, or someone took them or destroyed them or something.
Yeah, good point. Rudy is too loud says also if Larys took the letters, then Orwell could have some idea, which it could be a way of saying they could be working together. Like if Orwell has green sympathies, then he would have worked with Larys on this before Aegon fled.
Rudy's
you know
saying that because it would mean that the letters would have come, if they came in, it would have been through his office. So he knows all the letters that came through.
So Orwell would know about that compromising information. He would have already read them. They would be in his memory at least.
Whether he would have either read it or he would know that it was that he got responses from Ormund, even if he didn't know the contents, right? Like he would know letters came in.
True.
Potentially. I'm guessing Ormond isn't just a lone figure. He probably has a staff, right? Think how much time it would take to maintain the Ravens and also maintain sick Viserys. Like,
you mean Orwell? You said Ormond, but you meant Orwell.
So I meant Orwell, right? I mean Ormond too, probably, but I mean Ormond wasn't taking care of Viserys, but I'm saying Ormond would also have a staff. Ormond isn't serving all the soldiers food. He's got the staff of cooks and hunters or whatever to take care of that, right? He may make sure there's enough food or direct them how much we need or how far the journey is or here's the arrows you need. You're like, but someone else is handling that minutia. He probably has several people because also, again, Ravens might come any time of day. There's probably a night shift. Maybe he was failing at that or over-delegated and maybe he does know. But partly, I do think it makes sense he would have a staff and might not know the comings and goings of every letter that ever came and went. That would be almost impossible.
Is that cover it though, Sean? Does that cover it though? Like if he doesn't have to know every coming and go. He would have to just know a few.
But he might know the coming and goings of letters to the hand. It might make sense
exactly. And he only has to have caught a few of them. Like he doesn't have to catch a pattern.
Right. My other angle here is that so far he seems to be presented as trustworthy.
Trustwell. That's his new nickname. That's his new nickname.
And protagonistic. You know what I mean? We haven't really seen him do anything underhanded or deceptful. Like the closest worst thing he did was help Alicent go visit Rhaenyra, right? But early on, he was introduced underneath another maester, again, indicating that one maester doesn't do anything by himself, trying to give advice about Viserys' illness and being kind of blown off. But every step of the way, he seems like he's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to be honest. He's trying to do what's good for the rule of the realm, whatever. You know, he doesn't seem like a conniver.
I would put it more that he's trying to survive. But I agree with you that he's not doesn't necessarily seem like a conniver, but he might be just really good at it. He might just use it sparingly.
I would say not. He's trying to survive, but I'd say he's trying to help people as a maester. I think he does like serve and help. I think he does uphold that in that he. You know,
I think to some degree,
and help. Like he could.
I think survival is first on his list, but I
mean that's a way to survive. But I don't think he doesn't seem to dislike his lot in life or his role as a maester. Exactly, he seems to care about medicine, learning, be knowledgeable. He's competent at his job and seems to enjoy his job when he's doing the maesterly parts and not so much the council parts.
Yeah,
I also feel like it would be poor writing for them to be like, haha, Orwell and Otto were in cahoots all along. Like, I think that would be a little out of nowhere for them to pull that.
I don't think cahoots, but again, if he's trying to do what's best for him, what's pragmatic, having angles to both sides, having lifelines to both black and green, that makes sense. Yeah. So, like, full cahoots, I agree with you, but like willing to work with.
Cahoots, I think the Septim being in cahoots would make, like, if Ormond was sending his message to the Septim and Septim was giving him to Alicent or Otto, that I feel like would be less bad writing. That would be something like, oh, that makes sense, you know.
I don't think I follow. What do you mean?
Let's say that Ormond never sent letters back to quote unquote the Hand or King's Landing. He sent letters to the High Septon in King's Landing, and in the High Septon would deliver those to Otto or Alicent, so that people in the castle wouldn't have access to his communications. That's it. Like it's for the faith and Ormond to have more of a connection and to be a workaround to the inner workings of the Red Keep. Like that's something I could buy more easily than suddenly Orwell was being tricky all along.
Well, I wouldn't. I see what you're saying. I don't think I agree with the idea
I'm
that
not
he would
saying
send
I think
messages
that-
to the Septon. He could send messages to Otto through unofficial means. But still,
Right.
it's
It could
weird
be
that there's.
Mysaria
But I
or
don't even buy
whatever.
that, because why would there be zero? Like zero amount. Like that still doesn't get us to zero recorded messages ever. Like that. You know what I mean? Like that's still. It accounts for most of them. It doesn't account for all of them. And it's the all that gets. That is where we run into a problem. When that's where we run into like, huh? Anyway, let's move on. We spent a lot of time on that. I assume we'll hopefully have some more understanding of that later. Let's talk about the faith and the considerations here, because again, Rhaenyra is very concerned with how to proceed against the High Septon. Like you said, Sean, she has some of these suspicions, or at least should have some of these suspicions, and does. She wonders just what's this connection here between the High Septon and the High Towers? It's a good question. Now, she asks Orwell his opinion on this, and now if he has any sort of angle here, he might not be honest. But it looks like his answer from our angle, it looks like he was honest about it. He says, yeah, the High Towers, they're kind of like you guys are with the dragons. It's really just a part of who you are. And that's true. That's accurate. And when she says, well, do they control the High Septon? Do they control the Starry Sept and all that? And he's like, nah, I don't know about control. Influence, definitely. They're too proud to be ruled. And I love that, because that is very much also a parallel to the dragons. Like, do you control the dragons? No, you influence them. Yeah, control, not quite. Yeah, so that parallel really holds well. I thought that was really nice, really cool. So it's that dichotomy in Daeron too, which is like, yeah, he's a Targaryen, he's a dragon, and with Rhaena too, that she isn't one without a dragon. Especially now that we're in a world that has Targaryen dragons without the name Targaryen, like Ulf and Hugh, Adam. So, well, just those three, really. But anyway, so the language she uses too about the gods, right? This is where this really comes to a head, because she is concerned with this. She has the prophecy in mind, and she believes she has a divine purpose. So it definitely makes sense that she's wrapping it up in this language, but also uncertain how the existing structure of the faith will support her or not. And that's also confounded by the fact that her sense of purpose and prophecy doesn't really come from the Seven. You know, it comes from the gods, if you're just using the term loosely, which they do quite a lot in Westeros. The gods, old and new, or all the others. They're always been pretty open about that, what that means. So she says, yeah, they'd call me Maegor Returned, which, yeah, that would be really bad. Maegor was particularly vicious towards the faith. So that's a very apt comparison, something that she should be concerned about, because it's a pre-made comparison from her own distant family. Orwell argues she doesn't need an anointing, right? Maybe you still need to do that. Like, you have the power. Why do you need to? And this is where this proves to me that I don't know exactly where to land on Orwell. The man is absolutely not apolitical, though, because some of his suggestions are just too not maesterly. And this is a great example of that. She's like, well, what about removing him? And he's like, well, you can't just remove the head of the faith. The people, that's not your power. That's their job, their power. They get to decide who the head of their faith is. If you step in, that's an overstep. The faithful will be mad at you, and you don't. That's clearly what you said you don't want. But he says, unless you mean a more permanent removal, because what he's saying is, well, if you murder him secretly, then they have to replace him, and you can deal with his replacement instead of this current guy. The new guy might be someone more malleable, someone who's more open to giving you an anointment. So he just comes out and suggests that. Like, that is not an apolitical suggestion. He just flat out suggests murder, or suggests that maybe that's what you meant. He doesn't say it. He says, or unless that's what you meant. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just clarifying. Is that what you were asking? And she doesn't actually say one thing or the other. She just says, I'm surprised that you are so bloodthirsty, or whatever. So again, I don't know where this is going, but I think Orwell is someone to watch.
I feel like his response to that, he was almost aghast that she would think that of him. I think he was genuinely like, is this what you want to do? Like, he was realizing that might be what she meant and asked, and she tried to take the burden off herself of having made a suggestion of that type and put it on him. And he was like, what? No. again, who knows? Maybe they are building him up to be some secret evil conniver, but it's just not my read. That's just not where I see.
I don't think that makes him a secret evil conniver.
Yeah, I think that's going too far. Yeah,
yeah, I don't think that suggestion is a secret evil conniver. I think maybe it speaks to a lack of respect for the faith, which he might have,
or that he's just willing to play
High Septon specifically, who he might dislike, and that he's not. I don't know. I don't think it means he's evil.
I just think he's been around Aegon and Aemond and other people, Otto, whatever, too long. And he realizes that's the type of decision these people will make. And he doesn't like it, but he recognizes it might happen. And he's trying to account for that. But I don't think he wants that to happen. I don't think he's throwing it out there. He's just trying to read what she wants. And he would coordinate it for survival's sake or whatever. His position on the council and his life are tenuous, I guess. But,
and I think that's the point. He's willing to do what is necessary to survive in this regime, even if it means doing things he doesn't want to do. So I think that's proof of what I'm saying, that he's apolitical. He's not apolitical. He's definitely willing to do things. I don't know the depths of it, and I don't think he's evil. I don't know if it wouldn't go that far. Yeah. But like,
I'm not arguing he's apolitical, but I guess I'm arguing that I think he's good. I think he's a good person, a good character, or whatever. That he's the closest to,
I agree,
I don't know, Brienne or whatever that we have.
I agree. I think lots of scenes show that he is a relatively decent and honorable man, decent man struggling to be in court and to do what good he can do where he can. I think that we've seen that over and over from him. I don't know. I don't think that he's evil at all. I don't think Aziz isn't saying
no one
that
thinks he's evil. Yeah, that's not on the table for any of us. But I'm not as convinced he's as good as you guys think. And this isn't coming from the book. This is a different character from the book. Book Orwell and show Orwell are pretty different. But anyway, we'll just wait and see. This is enough. That's enough on Orwell. Let's move on. We'll see. Let's talk about physical graffiti. Let's get physical graffiti. Haha, songs. Led Zeppelin and wait, what was that? Olivia Newton-John, yeah.
Let me hear your city walls talk.
Yeah, hear your city walls talk. First, Ulf goes to his tavern. You see, his tavern is like right by where that graffiti was. So he's like walking to his graffiti, walking there, he sees the graffiti. I love how that one kid is like, what does that say? And Ulf leans in like, yeah, what does that say? And then the guy says, Queen of Bastards. But okay, so is this grassroots Hightower support? The part that makes me second guess that guess is that the paint in strong colors, the sigil of how strong is painted there. Like, what random commoner living in a near famine has all this paint? Paint is expensive in this setting. Paint is not like there's no Lowe's, no Home Depot down the street to get paint. Paint is not for everyone. Paint is very expensive. So the fact that there's multiple, not just paint, but multiple colors is a little bit like, this might not be just randos supporting the Hightowers. This might be propaganda to stir up stuff. What do you think, Sean?
Also, would random commoners know the strong colors? Like, they may or may not, but nobles certainly would. Like, if this is coming from those nobles that she just raided their houses for food.
Well, here's my question. The House Strong sigil is there. That is what those three colors are. Is the House Strong sigil meant to be there to represent that her bastards are strong bastards? Or are they meant to be there to be like, to throw Larys under the bus, as it were, as like, it's his calling card. He's going to get you, Rhaenyra. It's all a strong plot against you. I think the former, I think it's representing of the Harwin Strong of it all, but it is notable that there is another interpretation, which is that it's the Hightowers, it's Ormond. Yeah, it's Ormond, but I don't think it is Larys doing it, that it would be Ormond misdirecting and confusing her by it, by making it seem like it's a Larys and Aegon plot, right?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, sure.
One way or the other, it's so problematic because on one hand, Rhaenyra can't just like not do anything about this, but also, how can you possibly figure out who do this, right? You can't, like, it's I don't know, along the same line of like Daemon bringing that head. You can't prove that that's not the head of the person who riding sheep steel. There's no way to like collect evidence and have a
Yes,
trial
there
and
is
figure this
actually.
out, you know?
You can catch
I guess-
them. You can catch them red, green, and blue-handed. Right?
Right,
and
yeah, I
white-handed.
What, you break into everyone's house until you find someone with
No, I don't think you do
and
that. You
also
just
assume that they're guilty because of it, and not that it was stashed there, or they have paint for some other reason.
I think what you do is you just have the guards watch for it. Like, I think it's that. I think it's a little simpler. I think you just have to keep an eye out and find the culprits that way. You have to be more patient with it.
But unfortunately,
But that's
they
not
aren't
what
given.
gets
They aren't
done.
given those instructions.
not
They're
what's
giving
done, yeah.
no instructions except make it cease.
yeah,
So
very poor leadership.
Yeah.
Very bad. Again, Rhaenyra not knowing what she has with the gold cloaks.
And yeah, the way that it's being handled now is going to have the opposite effect on multiple levels. Random people getting inaccurately punished for this is going to make whoever did it do it more. Like, yes, it worked. And the random people getting unfairly punished are going to make her lose the support of the people. Like, hey, cool, Rhaenyra gave us enough food for 3 days and then killed my husband, right? Like, this is not going to go over.
It has a lot of modern parallels too, just like deploying police to invade homes and just root people out without, like you said, without evidence or any sort of process. It's terrible. Yeah, it's very uncomfortable. And it's a lot like, again, another parallel to season 1, episode 1, when Daemon just was like unleashed the gold cloaks on the people, just kind of because, like, it was kind of collective punishment, just like this kind of feels like collective punishment. That scene didn't feel like justice, and neither did this. There was very little that looked like justice here, and that's very intentional, I believe. To slightly argue the other side, just for a half second, if someone painted that high tower graffiti on a wall near where I lived in times like these, I would do what I would try to get that gone. Like, I would try to wipe that shit off. Like, I don't know if I could, but I would be like, I would be like, yo, I tried to get rid of this, man. Like, I was covering it. Like, the gold cloaks walk up and immediately I'm scrubbing it. You know, like, this is...
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at somebody put this here and I'm trying to get rid of it, guys. Like, this, I don't know who did this, but this needs to go.
I suppose it might create some pressure on the people in the neighborhood to rat someone out if they saw them doing it, or
Yes.
to clean it up themselves. You know, maybe on some angle this could, but it's I don't see that. I don't think that's where they're taking the storyline.
I agree, and it's a bad comparison. If you're rooting for Rhaenyra, well, Ormond gets the win here. His version of order, even though it's false and it's pragmatic, people aren't murdering each other in Tumbleton, but we have this happening in King's Landing, so that does not look good for Rhaenyra and her side. The Gold Cloaks are not only the wrong people to do this; they're not only too violent, too lacking in nuance, as well as, like, you know, all the other stuff we said, the evidence. They're mad. They're not getting paid.
Yeah. You add this ulterior motive of, like, we got to find someone to blame for this. Hey, this person also has some nice stuff in their house. Let's take it, right? They don't care as much about finding the right person when there's almost no way for them to do that anyway. They might just start targeting people who have more stuff or weaker, you know, houses with a single mom and 2 kids, as opposed to the big strong dude. All right, we're not going to blame him. We're going to blame this other person, right? And even aside from that, even if that's not a factor here at all, it is still a general factor they presented to us that they're not getting paid. And if the people start acting out against them, they may be like, screw it, I'm not going to be in the gold cloaks anymore. They all kinds of way the bedlam could play out. Rhaenyra's already trying to manage bedlam of the common people versus bedlam of the gold cloak. She's going to end up with both.
Well said. Well said. Let's talk about a new green. When
Skip? Okay. Are we not doing Ulf?
we talked about Ulf. What else did you want to say about Ulf? Go ahead. What do you have to say about Ulf?
You can mute. I can go to it. Sorry. I'm... I guess we could loop around. I'm struggling to find the scene now.
What scene did you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about him going to the tavern.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
what
I
else
wanted
did you
to
want to say
talk
about the
about
tavern?
that.
Yeah, I thought we talked about that at the beginning. That's why I moved past it.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it as one of my favorite scenes, maybe, when we went in a couple tangents about it, but I don't think we dug into that scene per se.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like his Norm moment. Basically, he's arriving at Cheers. He's very happy to be around the people that love him. He like this is his favorite place to be, and it's pretty sad that Rhaenyra takes that away from him without realizing what she's taken away from him. She doesn't fathom how important that is to him, and that's too bad. It's one of the big disconnects between his station and hers. Some of it's understandable. I mean, she was raised the way she was raised. She's a queen, and her upbringing is just so vastly different from his. It's hard for them to put themselves in each other's shoes.
I wanted to talk about how Ulf, when he gets there, he hugs both of his friends. He's very physically affectionate. They give each other these big hugs and remind you that when Daemon arrived and with Jace, he wanted to be physically affectionate with them without guile, without manipulation. That's how he's used to being, and he's rejected. And you see that the royals and the aristocracy aren't quite so effusive with each other at all, unsurprisingly. And so they reject him. But I thought, one, it was sweet to see him with his friends being affectionate. I thought that it was nice for him to ask for favors, not for himself, but for other people, even if those favors were crazy, to ask for Muja to get exemption from taxes, which is, and a house, but the exemption from taxes is even crazier. And also, Clay clearly did something bad, but we don't know how bad that.
A few somethings, because it was multiple crimes.
Well, we don't need to go into that.
We don't need to go into that. But to me, based on how bad it is, makes Ulf's request more, or less better or worse, because it could be something really despicable. Clay could have raped someone, and Ulf's asking for forgiveness for that. Or Clay could have just been gotten for some stealing because he's poor. You know what I mean? There's such a range. We don't know. But I thought it generally is a good character trait for someone to ask for help for others, not for himself, right? And then I also liked that he tries his hardest to put it into terms that the royals, that Rhaenyra will understand, if you know what I mean. He says allies. And then he frequented, he tries to use fancier words, if you know what I mean.
That's kind of what I meant when I said he was trying to be tactful.
Yeah, he's trying to be tactful.
The verbiage of the court, yeah.
But the other thing that it made me think about is you think about a My Fair Lady type situation or any other thing. Mm-hmm. There's no one teaching them. He doesn't have any way to know what's normal in court. And so he's left he just sits outside her room and then he just pops his head through. You know what I mean? He doesn't know all of how the court works.
In a more modern setting, there would have been an actual etiquette guide for him. Someone would have been teaching him the court manners and all that, but they don't have that.
Yeah, I do want to point out both, the humor, realisticness, editing, directing, or acting. I mean, that even his sort of bows are a little awkward. He's he kind of spreads his hands out a little bit. He doesn't quite know physically what to do with his body, and to your point, Ashay, yeah, it was all presented very well. The scenario that he's in, the attempt that he's making, and makes it all the sadder when he's once again shut down, belittled, and imprisoned.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He is effectively imprisoned. And Aziz brought something up beforehand, which is if he just asked instead, can I have my friends here with me? Maybe Rhaenyra would have let Muja come to and Clay or something, and he could have had friends to drink with in the castle. But he doesn't. He doesn't know to try something else, that might be more successful. Scared to try another tack because she shuts him down. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. As much as it's Ulf is an alcoholic. This is a security risk. All of these things are true. It is removing his sense of community is just going to alienate him further.
It's another thing about that kind of falls under the military umbrella. This guy is as she considers him, even points out that he's a military asset. Morale is so important in military, and she is not concerned with his morale at all. Hardly at all. Anyway.
Another minor little factor in all this, you made me remember, Shay, is that in the maybe a security threat, not just of him getting hurt to lose a dragon, but there's even other factors too, and him being drunk, right? When he goes to the tavern and meets up with his friends, and he's willing to buy them drinks, but kind of gets, pushed by the situation to buying drinks for everyone, and takes all his money. A combination of his pride and whether he's thinking about it or got instructions or would follow it or not, he can't say, I can't afford that. he wants to be thought of as like successful and rich Targaryen. He wants that for himself. But two, imagine if he told everyone at tavern, like, yeah, I'm broke. They can't give me any money because the queen doesn't have any money. They're broke. They don't even know how to pay the guard. Like he may or may not have been told not to say that, may or may not understand he shouldn't say that, but he may or may not say it on accident, eventually hanging out, getting drunk, right?
I also have one other thing about Ulf that we didn't mention, which is him reporting on, what he saw to her, which was an act of some bravery. I think you could look at it as like he's poking at her or getting her back, but I don't think that's the case. I think he knows that he's taking a risk here. I think he went there thinking, okay, I can go report on something important to her and also ask for my favors. I'll ask for that first. I'll report after. It goes poorly. And then he's like, well, I still got to do it. And he does it as delicately as he can. But that's my take on it. I think it's possible to have a different take, that it is kind of hurtful for him to tell her. But I think it is hurtful, but he's kind of falling on his own sword there because he knows this is important information.
Yeah. It is important for her to know, and whether he meant to report it in the first place or not, I hadn't considered that he did. I read it at first as like his chance to take a little dig at her, but
yeah, I agree with the Shea. I agree with the Shea. I don't think he was doing that at all. Yeah. I really don't. Yeah,
it's too dangerous to take a dig.
I shifted my thought. Part of what made me feel that way is when he added the line like, by people who don't think of you as being kind. And since he was just treated unkindly, but I think he plotted out what he's going to say ahead of time, and it just ends up coming off worse because she was just unkind. That's not his fault that she was unkind. Like,
exactly.
And worth saying, he's one of the bastards that she's a queen of.
Yeah.
Like, he's a bastard, Hugh's a bastard, Adam's a bastard. Yes, they're also saying that her strong sons were bastard, but she's surrounded by them in her dragon seeds as well.
Can I throw in this moment whether or not it should be or how it goes in the books, but I felt like this was part of the reason why she was hesitant about legitimizing Corlys' sons, for this reason.
Exactly this reason.
Used against her,
Yeah, it's exactly this reason. But I mean, look, it's used against her whether she did it or not.
It's and now
she also lost Corlys. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's very well thought out by her, because if she's going to use those guys, they're bastards whether they've been legitimized or not. She's using Alan, so he is a bastard, no matter what his name is. So anyway, let's move on. That was good. A new green, meaning the new baby here. Alicent is first confronted by the reality that despite trying to save Daeron when he was young by sending him away, it may have backfired, because at first Rhaenyra was going to send him to the wall. Now that's no longer an option. She basically says, I was going to spare him, right? But now that's no longer a thing. She knows in her heart, Alicent does, that there's pretty much no way that both of them survive. Not her and Daeron. I mean Rhaenyra and Daeron. Either Rhaenyra's going to die, Daeron's going to die, or both of them are going to die. I don't think she envisions a future where both of them live and that they're all like happy. As part of this scene, Otto's ring is given to her by Rhaenyra. It's a keepsake and like a mild connection between them, but it's also kind of morbid. It's a reminder that there's just so many more deaths to come. But more importantly than all that is the end of the episode. We discover that Helaena is pregnant and has been for a bit, because you don't start showing that quickly. This could easily be 4 months. It might be 5. It could be as little as 3, but it's probably around the 4-month period, which is a substantial amount of time already, only leaving 4 or 5 months of the pregnancy left. Now, they could fudge the timeline a little bit, a couple of weeks here and there, give her a premature birth. No question this could happen this season, right? Doesn't mean it will, but it wouldn't be some big stretch to do that. In the short term, it's terrifying to both Helaena and Alicent. This is not just a child, it is a potential claimant to the throne. If it's a girl, well, she's relatively safe in the same way that Jaehaera is relatively safe, can be married off, isn't a claimant directly. If it's a boy, oh man, massive conflict and sadness in the making. And the point isn't whether the child is a boy or a girl, it's that you can't know yet. So Alicent's, what's she going to do? Take a coin flip chance on this? I mean, it's a ticking clock. There's only so much time that can pass before Rhaenyra or a maid or somebody notices. You can't keep this hidden for very long, just like you couldn't keep that hair hidden for very long, right? This is also something that will be revealed in very soon, because it can't happen otherwise, which has a potential trickle-down impact on every other Green's plot line, because it affects the view of the succession, both legally and directly, but, everybody doesn't have to follow the direct line of succession, as we've seen, so it isn't that straightforward. People think Aegon is dead, but what if he has a posthumous son? Like, that just is such a monkey wrench. Now, I know some people are wondering if Aemond is the father of this child, but I really, really don't think the timeline supports that. I also don't think Aemond supports that. Aemond would absolutely father a child on Helaena, but not a bastard child on Helaena. He's all about, like, the propriety, the line, and all this. He's almost like Ormond in a sense, like that. He wouldn't do that because he's not going to have a bastard. Like that. So also the bigger point is the timeline. Also, it hasn't been really shown in any way.
Way earlier, when it was a different set of actors and it was being set up for Aegon to marry Helaena, and he didn't really want to do it, but Aemon was like, it's your duty. Aemon seemed to have I don't know what word to use, a code of honor about him, about this type of thing. So yeah, I don't think Helaena would want to. And so he would have to force her. I don't think he would do that. On and on and on.
There's just been no suggestion of it either, other than like the hint of the possibility, but there's been no direct evidence. Anyway, regardless, it goes to show what an agent of chaos a baby bump could be. The fact that we're even talking about that amidst all these other things that are a lot more certain, right? So what do you think? Like, what does this mean to you, Sean? Like, this is like, like you can see why it's a clever plot point, why it throws such potential conflict into so many different things. But where do you, how does it land with you?
Yeah, the first thing I want to point out is how amazing I thought that scene was. There were 2 sentences in that whole scene. Rhaenyra came in and said, we're sending your father's remains. This is what Viserys would have wanted, and left. And then Alicent, recognized it in Helaena and said, Helaena. That was the entirety of dialogue in that scene. And yet so much was conveyed and set up. Like Rhaenyra, once again, we didn't pick her as the top of the episode, but still in that moment, she was in such an awkward spot. She's going to visit her former best friend to give her news about the remains of her father, who she killed herself, right? She's like trying to do the right thing about having done the wrong thing. And it's not like, sorry, I lied to you. It's like, sorry, I killed your dad. Like, she just doesn't know what to say to Alicent. She's trying to follow through with her promises and trying to be, I don't know, a good friend or whatever, but it's still just so tough. And she just leaves. She just has to get out of there.
Sean, how did you take note of when it takes place? What scene is immediately before it?
Oh, I don't recall now, no.
It's when she gets the head. She realizes how she wanted to face the person who killed her family member and wanted to face revenge. And then she goes and has to talk to Alicent about how she killed her father,
Yeah.
It's like straight cut.
Going to kill her other son.
Yeah.
Or he's going to kill her other son and all that. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. That's good. Good framing, good editing, good.
Yeah.
So, man,
there's a lot of good edits like that where it transitions from one scene to another with great meaning between what it transitions from and to.
So I was saying, this episode very subtle, a lot to miss. I didn't catch that one. That's a great catch. Like we haven't even talked about the music in this one. Like the music got real dark when Rhaenyra said, "Just make it stop" with the gold cloak, because we all the way she's giving those orders, this is not going to go well. Things like that. That's a good example. So our final section, let's catch up with the other green claimants. That means Harrenhal, and it means Aegon. With Daeron made into a claimant, who is a possible heir, and a possible heir of Aegon in Helena's belly right now, there are the existing claimants to discuss beside them. So we got Daeron, we got Baby Bump, we got Aemond, who is supposed to be at Harrenhal and isn't. We got Cole and Gwaine, who actually are at Harrenhal, but clearly are leaving right away. And then there's Aegon and Larys, who are kind of pulling a Daenerys to go forward, you must go back kind of thing, which is where we'll go next. Rook's Rest. Back to Rook's Rest. As I said earlier, isn't it wild, the human condition? It's so much easier to feel sympathy for this guy in this state. Mangled, and when he's a mangled and burned king and in massive pain, We don't care. He earned that. But when he's lost everything and he's mourning his beloved pet, you have my attention, right? Yeah, we don't forget Aegon's crimes, just like we don't forget Daemon's crimes, right? But that's,
You know what I noticed?
We found moments to feel sorry for Cersei back in the day, so,
You know what I noticed right off the bat when that scene starts with Aegon and Larys? He's off ahead of Larys. He hasn't even waited for Larys before he sets off to, like, he's single-minded on, like, I must get to my dragon. You know what I mean? And then eventually it's funny because Larys does just catch up to him, so what was the point of that? But, I thought this was a really cool scene because it shows, like, the power of having a dragon there, that like these men are making a living off of them, as just like taking money for people to see it as an attraction.
Even the dead dragon is powerful.
Yeah, even a dead dragon is powerful, or seemingly dead dragon, because Aemon says he's alive. He's very confident that whether it's cope or not, he seems to think that.
Yeah, he really does. He seemed pretty adamant about it. He was speaking in Valyrian. He was definitely a little, Larys is like, you got to accept what's in front of you. So Larys isn't seeing it. But I don't know. What do you think, Sean? Is Aegon being desperate? Is he sensing something? Like, what did you think about that moment?
I think he's just, can't accept reality. Like, I'm telling you, there was a part of me in that moment. I thought like the dragon's eye was gonna go up.
They totally made it look like it was gonna.
And I would have been frustrated. I mean, it's been laying out there for months and months with no food after a massive injury. Like it got burned, bit, and fell and left in the wilderness. Like I wouldn't even be surprised if people have tried to pick at its bones or something. Maybe it just recently got I don't know. They described it as rotting.
But it wasn't, though, is it? It's not rotting, though, is it?
It's not rotting. There's flies.
There is no rot.
And there's no one has taken anything off of it.
The rot was wrong. Yeah. That was an incorrect statement seen from above.
I couldn't specifically tell if there was rotting or if there was supposed to be, but they said in the behind the scenes, and they even showed an image in behind the scenes. It didn't quite come through in the episode, but it looked like its jaw was like missing and bloodied, and maybe over time the blood would be washed away by rain.
That was the fake, the real one, the prosthetic one they do. When you look at on the side, it's mangled on the other side.
Yeah,
you mean
exactly.
Yes, on the other side.
On the bottom side looked mangled, and that maybe makes sense because that's the part that hit the ground.
Well, here's what I think, Sean, which is that in that same BTS, they did a lot of work on Sunfyre. They made a whole head for Sunfyre, right? I think it's more likely they did that if they have more to do with Sunfyre than the one scene.
Could also just be another, like we were like, this is the same thought process with the Vale. Like they did all that work for the Vale room, and then they're only going to use it for that. I mean, maybe that's like they've done that before. They've done lots of things like that. It's been plenty of times where they've made an expensive set and used it very little. I mean, some of the armor these guys wear, you barely see it, and it's crazy expensive and hard to make, but that's just, they want that background detail to be really strong. So, yeah, I agree. It's framed in a way. I like that you read it this way, Sean, because, yeah, it is framed as a way that's like, you can't really tell, like dragons are magical, so they're not necessarily bound by all the same rules and expectations.
Dragons don't obey the laws of physics.
They do not obey the laws of physics. They do not obey the laws of physics. We know that much because they probably shouldn't be capable of flight, but based on the laws of physics. But hey, I'm not complaining about that.
I'm just going to say, like, you don't know how long a dragon could go without eating based on how much food storage they have. Like, that is technically possible, I think, for a magical creature to have food stores that they are like eating away at to keep them longer and be in like a hibernation.
Yeah, it could be a coma. Animals hibernate. Yeah, these are all.
I don't think it's crazy. I think, if this was a dog, it's crazy. You know what I mean? But I can't. A dragon, anything seems possible.
Yeah, and we'll see. So Aegon expects loyalty from these people because they were installed by Kristen Cole, but Larys can tell that's not the case. Besides that, they don't know this at first, but he later learns that everyone thinks he's dead. So if he were to announce who he was and expect them to be loyal, well, he'd have to, prove that he's actually him, which is, again, how's he going to do that? So,
and even if somehow he did prove it and those people accepted it, You think word wouldn't get back to Rhaenyra and she wouldn't send a bunch of troops and a dragon there to get him, you know?
Yeah, and Larys is like, yeah, you can't trust these guys because if you do reveal yourself and they do believe you, they're just as likely to turn you in because, like, you're not on the throne. Like, their pragmatic option is to turn you in for the reward, just like he tried to.
It's already happened, yeah.
Like he tried to encourage those other guys to do, like, don't kill us, give us for the reward. Yeah. So most of everything Larry says proves right. He's like, keep your mouth shut. Some of them were obvious, like, don't act proud. Come on, man. Like, just keep your mouth shut, you know? But, you know, this goes to show it's hard to undo that royal upbringing. He's just so instilled in him.
Did you notice this moment I have on screen, Aziz, where this old lady notices Larys' club foot and there's like this kind of moment with him?
There's several moments like that in these scenes. Tangletongue looks funny at him. Tangletongue tries to stop Janos from making Aegon kiss his foot. There's another dude with a black beard that side eyes them as they're passing. I think there's people that are suspicious of who they are, and that might be people. It's entirely possible one of them has seen Aegon before or seen Larys before. It's not that strange. Like this guy was looking like
guy, yes.
Yeah, that guy.
I wanted to bring up, there was a moment when we got a perspective kind of like outside.
Yes.
I'm trying to think, it's probably like a cinematic term, but it was like kind of through a window.
Yeah, it was framed, yes, as if someone was watching them.
Right. It wasn't, but most of the shots were like over Aegon's shoulder to Larys, over Larys' shoulder to Aegon, a person in the street watching them go by. But then we saw what seemed to be a POV of a person that was hit.
Yeah,
and maybe that was there.
I've got it on screen. Yes, that's how I took it as well. Yes.
Yeah, that someone is watching and seeing something there, and that cinematic shot there to me is a clue of a future scene and plotline.
I agree. Well sniffed out, Sean.
It might be good for them that someone, you know, that wants a payday and is able to help them. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if someone is just as likely to be helpful to get benefit.
I like how Larys talks a little bit like Ormund. He avoids the question by providing a different answer. Like when Daeron says, well, I'm not going against my brothers. It's like the gods said. You know, he doesn't actually answer the question. He just sort of one-ups him. Same thing happens here. The garrison commander guy is like, how'd you get out of Sharp Point? He goes, we nearly didn't, and points at Aegon's burned face. He doesn't actually answer the question there. It's very clever. That's Larys. He remains one of my favorite performers on the show. So Aegon is on, speaking of things smelling funny, Aegon is on latrine duty. He's seen gagging. He certainly isn't used to this sort of work. The tough guy in charge around the area, you can imagine that this Janos guy, it's funny they named him Janos, a name that we're preloaded to hate because of Janos Slynt, was probably a soldier left behind by Criston Cole that Criston Cole didn't particularly trust. You always leave behind the guys to do garrison duty that you don't like or you trust the least or that the least capable. So this was like the toughest, meanest of the guys that Cole didn't trust and left behind. So there's a bit of a Theon vibe here with the scene, meaning Theon goes to negotiate with the Ironborn who are left behind at Moat Cailin, the ones who are abandoned by their own. And they're barely above the level of broken men, but there's a little bit of leadership and a lot of desperation. And yeah, it's they're just playing these guys and trying not to get killed in the process, because while they're playing them, they're definitely in danger. And it cuts, I love this, another great nuance of filmmaking. That's something that maybe a lot of readers don't catch because we're not as conditioned to notice these things. It cuts from Rhaenyra doing her crappy job to Aegon doing his crappy job, and then back to Rhaenyra. They're just miserable. No matter which job they have, they're miserable. Like being the king sucks. Being the queen sucks. Hauling latrine stuff, that sucks too. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that so much. Absolutely. I mean, I think Aegon wasn't exactly that happy as king either.
Probably wasn't.
Happier than this, slightly.
He wanted to just be like Ulf and just go drink with his friends.
I many times have made a similar point, but I do want to say that Rhaenyra, when she gets done with her crappy job, or as she does her crappy job, gets to eat an egg. Aegon's getting no food. Rhaenyra's going to go sleep in a big, nice bed. Aegon's going to sleep on a dirt. Like, there might be some tough parts to your life and your job in either way, but I would still pick one over the other.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with that. So this plotline, despite the danger around them, there is also the sense that this is moving quickly because Larys says that there's a boat, a Braavosi cog they can probably take from Duskendale. So they may be prevented from doing that because of this apparent danger, but they may escape it maybe one step ahead of it. So we'll see. Again, subtle, very subtle. There was these hints that maybe people recognize him, maybe people, I don't know that, whatever happens, I don't know that this guy who's made Aegon kiss his foot, I kind of have a feeling it won't go well for him. But anyway.
Janos, which speaks to that being a terrible name for a character in Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. If your name's Janos, we're likely to not like you.
Yeah, you probably won't have a good outcome. Final location, final scene, final discussion. Harrenhal. 2 different scenes at Harrenhal. Both pretty quick, both pretty efficient, solid, very spooky. Great use of the location itself. When they first ride up and you see the damage Vhagar had wrought, you've got a couple of these guys are grinning, but because they're looking around like, whoa, look at that. But Criston Cole, I think, is anything but. He's like, this is exactly what he hates. He's like, these dragons, like, what is the point of us when there are dragons? It's really messed up Cole's whole outlook on everything. But what we see in these pair of scenes here is his sense of purpose is restored, kind of for a somewhat ironic reason, but it's definitely there. Cole immediately, he kind of falls into that dark mood. He's looking around. He sees that. It's like, look what Vhagar did to those men. They didn't even have a chance to fight. They just burned like it was nothing. It was just, what was the point, right? One thing if I would be thinking, if I was anyone in that group, commander or soldier, other than, I'm glad that wasn't me, would be, why are these guys sleeping outside and there's a castle that big there? Well, that question is easily answered by anyone who's got any experience with Harrenhal. Like, yeah, that's believable. Okay, that's well set up. Yeah.
I'll also note, when he arrives, the black banners are still up.
That's true.
Which is notable.
He doesn't have this. Aemond isn't going to go stewarding around the whole building, pulling everything down.
Or
like,
an indication, again,
meant
from Alice to be like, no, he's not here. He never actually took it and kept it. Even though, you know what I mean? Like, that is what it indicates. It supports her story.
So if you sleep inside the walls of Harrenhal, you're cursed. If you sleep outside, you're burned. Either way.
A couple of things. One quick thing I want to say is I feel like a lesson they're not learning is spread out. Don't get everyone 1 foot from each other in a line 4x4 and have a dragon come burn you all at once. Spread out. Oh my God. At least when you see a dragon. 2, I don't know. In my mind, I'm not confident that Aemond is there. Now, maybe he's, asleep in some basement or something and Alice is tending to him and lying. But where's Vhagar?
I don't think we're making that point. I don't think we're not saying he's there.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's saying he's there.
Right. I wonder if maybe he's on the Isle of Faces or some other nearby place where Vhagar can hide out and Alice can go to him. Maybe Vhagar just took off and he is there. I don't know. But it's
super easy to hide when you're a dragon like that, even with that big, because all you got to do is fly a few miles away and then that's outside of their search range.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about that personally. Like there's a million places Vhagar could hide.
But even a few miles away, when does he know to come back? What if he goes to get food? What if some random person sees him and reports it? You can only hide so long, and if you go too far away, then you're not there. Aemond is on his own. There's no drag. You know what I mean? Like if Aemond suddenly needs him and wants to fly away, assuming he even knows where Vhagar is and it's miles away, you see what I'm saying? It's still kind of tricky.
No. He's not going to be separated from his dragon. That's out of the question. Like, that's not happening.
Not permanently, but he still can't just run out to the courtyard, jump on him, and fly off. He's got to run 4 miles away.
No, not even that. It's not even that far. It wouldn't even be 4 miles away. When he's out in the field like this, he's sleeping right next to Vhagar when he's in the field. That's how that generally works. Because otherwise, you are exposed to people. Like, you're very vulnerable otherwise.
Yeah, in my mind, I was thinking that Alice had Aemond there in the castle.
Oh, she might, but I don't think that's the case. Yeah. Given that Vhagar's not there, I don't think Aemond is there. That's why I'm saying that, because they wouldn't be separate. There would be no reason for him to be so separate from his dragon. That would be silly of him to separate from the thing that makes him nearly invulnerable. He's arrogant enough to do it, but there just doesn't seem why, though. Why would he do that? What's the point? Why would he hide his dragon from his own allies, right? Like, that just doesn't make sense. Let's move on a little bit, because there's more we can say about this. One thing I would, again, the location's awesome. the spookiness here is on display. The sounds, Gwaine and Cole kind of look at each other like, what was that? But I think it was bats. Did you guys hear that as bats? That sound of fluttering?
Yeah, I
thought
say
so.
like
That's generally what it is.
Bats kind of sound, yeah. But this is really such a series of striking shots because it's got the reflection shot that Claire Kilner has had like in almost every episode.
She loves that,
which is a great shot. But also, I felt that the gray was so striking with all the silver of the soldiers' armor as they walk up to Harrenhal and in Harrenhal. It was just like, as along with like the black grayness, like the ashy stuff, I just felt like it was a really series of bleak and striking shots.
I agree. It was really, like I said, you put it better than I did, but I said just great use of the location, which... yeah, you just put it better. Yeah, Claire Kilner really loves those reflection shots. She directed episodes 2, 3, and 4. Each one of them. Did all 3 have reflection shots? Certainly 2 of them did. I'm not sure if the other one
certainly
did.
2 did. I don't remember. I don't think there was the other one did. But we had the Blood and the Iron Throne, and then we had this one, of course.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Sean?
You remember that card game, The Grizzled? I think it was like a World War I card game.
No.
And you weren't so much trying to win as you're trying to not lose. Like everything that happened through the game, you either got your leg amputated or your commander was killed or you got dysentery or like... Anyway, that's like you just start off by saying, if you're inside, you're going to go insane. If you're outside, you're going to get burned. It's just a series of terrible choices. And the visual representation in that game was also kind of dark and gray and worn and miserable,
Perhaps. Go ahead, Shay.
I was going to say, we made this joke. We referred to this joke in our preview episode, but I want to repeat it here, that Alice has got this like beautiful, ornate kind of purple and gold fit, which is very like Simon Strong's fit. And Gail Rankin shared a joke about how she just reused Simon's clothes to make her dress her new fancy dress.
Totally fits. Yeah.
All right, this is a perfect moment for me to bring up a little tangent.
Oh, we can't, Sean. You got to save it for next week. We're at over 3 hours right now. We were way over.
So the man, she says, "Are you lost?" And they reflect the fear they've already been feeling as they walk through the halls. This is very telling. The men with swords and plate mail stand still. They do not take a step forward to her. She walks slowly towards them as if she knows that they're afraid. She's like, "Don't run away, kitty cat." She's walking towards them like, "Here, kitty, let me talk to you." Gwaine has his sword pointed at her until she's almost close enough to touch it. And then I think he kind of realizes how ridiculous this is. He's like, wait, what am I doing? And A, I'm an honorable man. This is unchivalrous. B, what am I afraid of exactly? Am I afraid of her? Actually, I am afraid of her, but why? And then you can kind of see all that's going through his head. But then he's distracted because, oh yeah, Aemon left after he heard Rhaenyra took King's Landing. She's like, what now? King's Landing? And then it kind of skips ahead to when they come back to the scene. They've caught up on the news. They not only know about King's Landing, they also now know about Tumbleton. And we also have this guard that comes in and says he found an abandoned nest from Vhagar days old. This bothers Cole because this was the plan. He's like, we were supposed to meet here and do our thing. And Gwaine's like, well, that's that. We got to march south and hook up with Ormund. He's a stiff-necked windbag, but he's neither craven nor stupid. He'll have some canny plot afoot. Correct, by the way. But Cole is like, nah, I don't think we can do that. We can't do that. We can't back down. We have to fight here. This is not... He doesn't want to go fight dragons. He doesn't want to go to do that. I have a little bit of problem with how Gwaine frames this because he kind of acts like they're giving up. They're not giving up. Gwaine wasn't suggesting give up. He was suggesting go join forces with Ormund. But Cole acts like that is a form of capitulation. And I can kind of see his point given his state of mind, which is if we go down there, we're just getting involved in the big fight against dragons. The light comes into him here. He realizes this is what he can do. He finally has a plan that involves not dealing with dragons. He still expects to die. in this war, but he had lost the sense that his contributions mattered. He's like, what are we even doing here? Now he believes he can make a difference. Maybe not a huge one, as he tells Gwaine, but it will be an honorable one. Man to man, clean, no dragons. Of course, he's describing guerrilla warfare, which is, I don't know why you call that clean, but compared to dragons, I can see his point, I suppose. Ambushes, night raids, 20 good men type stuff. And they're badly outnumbered, 20 times outnumbered, in fact, is what he says. As the scorpion attacks the ox, let us become wraiths with fear as our standard. And the music matches this changed purpose of Kristen Cole. And Gwaine is hoisted on his own petard. He's like, whoa, you know, we can't do blah, blah, blah. And he said, no, we got to keep to our honor, lest we become beasts ourselves. He's like, yeah, you got me with that one, man.
but Cole recognizes that he's using fear and being a wraith and doing something dishonorable, as you say he's doing something cleaner, but he still recognizes that it's dirty to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very self-serving because before if you take dragons out of the equation, you take a battlefield, put Kristen Cole on it. He's probably the best fighter on that battlefield, but put the dragons in it, all of a sudden that's taken away from him. So that's something he's lost. The fact that he was so great. He lost that. He's like, I lost the thing that made me special is gone.
If you're measuring the warriors on a battlefield on a scale of 1 to 10, he's a 10.
Yeah.
But the scale has changed because dragons are 100. And his 10 over all these other 9s and 7s don't matter when there's 100, when there's 7 different hundreds flying around.
Well put. So this puts him back in a place where he can make that kind of difference, where his 10 matters.
Okay, I'm trying to get this out. You know what? This scene I felt like had just great parallels on a couple levels to the Ormund Daeron scenes, in that Ormund has felt this powerlessness in the face of the dragons that Kristen Cole is feeling, despite Ormund being some of the most privileged of the elite. And he feels this, right? So one, that. Two, the idea that Ormund has kind of raised up and taught a young Targaryen everything he knows, right? Will this Targaryen live up to it or not remains to be seen. Cole raised up Aemond and taught him everything he knows. He was his main teacher. He was his main father figure in a lot of ways. And here he's just left him, abandoned him. He has not lived up to it. He has let him down, like, so grievously. And I think it shows that Ormond is going to be let down by Daeron too. I think you can try to mold someone however you like it, and they're not gonna follow.
You can make that prince stand there with a towel while you take a bath. He's still a prince with a dragon. That was crazy. Like, you don't know he's a prince necessarily yet in that moment, but you're like, wait, he was standing there with a towel like this. There's nothing wrong with being a valet. That's not a shameful job, but making a prince with a dragon do that is out there. It's a really powerful way of showing just how deep he's got his hooks in and how deep he's trying to get his hooks in. Both of those things. So, yeah, Gwaine has no answer for Cole's spiel there. You can kind of understand. He was, like I said, hoisted by his own petard. And since we're talking about Daeron as well, we didn't mention that Daeron asked, is Gwaine coming? You know, after he heard Aemond isn't coming, he still asked, is Gwaine coming? And the answer to that was also basically a no. But he likes Gwaine. I think that's a sign. That's a sign that, you know, those two are of a mind. And that scene from season 2 where Alicent asks Gwaine about her son, like, hey, you see him every once in a while, you know, I haven't seen him in forever, tell me about him. And they have that heart to heart, and he's like, yeah, he's a good kid, this and that, you know, you hear some things, and it's pretty sad, but you do get the sense that Gwaine knows him better than anyone. Like, Lord Ormond doesn't see him for who he is, he sees him as a tool. Gwaine actually might know a bit about Daeron the person, but whether that will actually play out or matter, whether they get to have that.
I have to think that's a big part of what's motivating him to want to go to Ormond and Daeron. It's not out of trying to help Ormond, who he doesn't like, or out of just doing his duty. I think he's like, I gotta help my little family member who I care about, and he's got a dragon, so that's good for our army to have a dragon on our side. And it just makes sense. His plan, I think, is just better.
Yeah, I agree.
But also, Kristen is right that he is. There's nothing left for him. You know, he's nothing. He was the son of a steward, and you know, this is all he's got. The point that he makes there, you know, which I thought was somewhat valid, and
Gwaine can surrender
Yeah.
and get the pardon, probably. There is no
Yes.
pardon for Kristen Cole.
There's definitely no pardon for Kristen
Yeah.
Cole, and that's what he's saying, which is also why I'm like, well, Gwaine, you should realize that, hey, maybe I don't want to stick by the guy who's like, I'm going to die, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to die trying, and maybe you don't want to die trying.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they are definitely split on that, because you can see why Gwaine would want to go to Ormond and why Cole doesn't want to go to, like, Ormond. How would Ormond treat Cole? You know, like he's going to treat him like a lowborn guy that kind of, you know, that's what Ormond would do, I think.
One other factor to consider here is the morale of the soldiers. Like, they've been kind of hurry up and wait for a long time, just marching through the fields, waiting to meet up with Aemon and Dragon, waiting to have this victory, waiting to take Harrenhal. And every step of the way, they keep waiting to get to Harrenhal, and there's nothing to take. There's no battle to be had. Aemon's not there. The Dragon's not. And they're like, oh, well, let's march back to this other place. These are soldiers that are ready for a battle, and it just keeps not happening. And Cole's like, we need to have a battle. Like, it's not far from Corlys, right? We had this mission, and we've been dejected, and I just have to do something. Just marching over to someone else to have them tell me what to do. That's not it. That's not what I'm going to do. Now, I'm not sure how much Corlys' concern for the morale affects him versus his personal nihilism or quest for glory or whatever else. But it is a factor to consider. He is a commander and a leader and should have the pulse of his men. And that would be a thing to now go tell them. Because remember, last episode, like, to Harrenhal, ah!
They were excited because
never mind.
Vhagar was there. That was the reason they finally win, because they're like, hey, Vhagar. Yeah, you're right. So this could, he's going to have to talk his men into...
Let's walk all the way back to King's Landing.
Well, they're not going to King's Landing. They're going
past King's Landing. Let's walk all the way back farther than where we came from.
No, they're not. That's not the plan. The plan is to...
Tumbleton
That's
south
he's saying that's what Gwaine's plan is. That's what Sean's speaking to.
Gwaine wants to go there.
Yeah, that's what Sean's talking
Right,
about.
right.
Oh, I see. My bad.
Why he's saying that Kristen's plan is better because it gives
I missed your
the
framing
men...
there. Okay, cool. Let's move on. All right, so that's about it. We have had a nice long episode, longer than we planned, but that happens sometimes, especially with character development. We spend more time discussing the character development episodes than we do the battles, because, well, there's just less to say about battles. They speak for themselves a lot more. That's the way it is. This episode is probably the biggest amount of setup we've had, so it makes sense that we spend the most time talking about it. Kirsty Angel sends a super chat, says, Caraxes drinking water has green eyes, yellow in season 1 and 2 and the books, and Alice is right there.
I think there's an easy answer for that. It's reflecting from the water. Yellow eyes reflecting with blue. Like it's kind of like the blue of everything. I just think it's going to make it more green looking in that. And the color grading is not consistent in this show.
That's true. The color rating is not consistent.
I would say you shouldn't make anything of that, frankly.
I would. It's maybe worth considering, but yeah, it is more likely to just be angles and mixed hues than something. But something to consider. So we'll see a lot of you all for the preview stream on Friday. Got plenty more to say. They didn't actually give us a normal trailer. They gave us a weeks ahead trailer. So it's kind of we can't exactly tell what's next. But we can tell what's in the next 4 weeks. So we can't wait to continue to talk about the season. It's just the first half that we've finished. Usually the second half has, as I said, a lot more resolution, a lot of this awesome setup we should see play out. And I'm excited to see how that goes. On behalf of Sean and Ashea, I am Aziz, and I hope you all not just Valar read us, but Valar rewatch us. Oh, wait, the poll. I almost forgot about the poll. Is Daeron's hair dyed red? 53%. No, 47%. So very even call. I'm on the yes side.
53% yes, 47% no.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said it wrong.
You said it inverse, but yes, it's so close.
I'm on the yes side of that, but we almost certainly will find out. Without explaining, because we don't have time to explain why. Which side are you guys on?
I'm on the no side.
I'm on the, it could go either way. I don't know that we'll see it. The only way I could see we see it is if he has roots that grow in, I guess. I just don't know that I think we'll see it. I guess we may never know. I like the idea more that it's red. I want it to be that it's already red. I lean towards it's probably more likely dyed red. If that, I want one more. I think the other's more likely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So thanks y'all, and we'll see you next time.